Hey, good afternoon, everybody. 7 minutes past the hour on this 28th day of November. So glad that you could be with us on this kickoff to the drive. It is, let's see, I've got it written down here. Where did I put it? Yeah, here it is. 26 shopping days till Christmas. And is that right? That can't be right. I got to relook that number up. 48 days until they start voting in Iowa. So hold it. Today's the 27th. Today's the 28th.
28th, yeah.
So 30 days, September, April, June, and November. So 31 days, so we got 2 more days. And then it's 27 days. 26 days, and then Christmas would be 27.
Yes.
Okay,
that
good.
is correct. Yeah.
Now, once again, our math skills are on display for all to marvel at. And 48 days until they start the voting in the 2024 presidential cycle. And that's where I want to start off today with a 2024 update. There are new developments here today with regard to, surprisingly, Nikki Haley. Now, if you've been with us for the last few shows, you know that I've been talking about these polls that have sort of a remarkable sort of glitch in them, or not a glitch, but a sort of an unusual finding with regard to Nikki Haley. I mean, right now, if it comes down to Trump versus Biden, depending on which poll you look at, most of the polls show Trump in the lead, but most of those polls are within the margin of error. A couple are outside the margin of error, but just barely. But when they run the hypothetical matchups, and they say, what if it happened to be Nikki Haley versus Biden? Nikki Haley wins by 10, 11, or 12 points, depending on which poll you look at. I mean, she finds an audience in the middle that Trump apparently cannot access or hasn't accessed yet. And so, people look at that, it's not a raise an eyebrow. Well, Trump, is at who everybody is lining up behind, right? I mean, if you look at the polls, Trump is 51 points or, in some polls ahead of his nearest rival. But increasingly, the nearest rival has not been Ron DeSantis. It has been Nikki Haley. In Iowa, Haley's making a bit of a surge. I mean, she's still way, way, way behind Trump, but she's starting to get ahead of DeSantis in Iowa in a pretty significant way. And today, she got one of the biggest endorsements that you can get from the Koch brothers. That's right. The Americans for Prosperity Action said on Tuesday that it would support the former South Carolina governor and United Nations ambassador. The conservative powerhouse supports is a boost to Haley as her campaign enters the final 7 weeks before the first nominating contest in Iowa. She has what it takes to lead a policy agenda, to take on our nation's biggest challenges, and help ensure our country's best days are ahead, AFP said. With the grassroots and data capability we bring to bear in this race, no organization is better equipped to help her do it. As the Republican presidential primary has begun to narrow and Haley has risen in polls, there's been some questions about whether she has the campaign infrastructure to take advantage of her momentum. AFP, with the grassroots networks of millions of volunteers nationwide and very deep pockets, could significantly help her in that regard. Now, the Koch network, the Koch brothers, did not support Trump in the first White House bid in 2016, and the two sides have clashed over his opposition to long-held conservative beliefs on government spending and free trade, as well as over the network's more welcoming stance on immigration. Trump's campaign responded with a statement critical of both AFP and Haley that included the former president's preferred nickname for someone who once served in his administration. Americans' Prosperity, the political arm of the China First, America Last movement, has chosen to endorse a pro-China, open borders, and globalist candidate in Nikki Birdbrain Haley, Trump spokesman Stephen Chung said. In recent weeks, Haley has increasingly won the backing of high-profile donors on Wall Street and elsewhere. I'll add to that. This is by this I'm reading from the Wall Street Journal version of this story. There are many versions of it. You can find them all over at yourfarm.com under the 2024 banner. But Nikki Haley has seemingly in recent days become the place where the money people in the GOP, the power brokers, the people who have the wherewithal to significantly fund a campaign, and the Koch brothers certainly have that ability. Well, they all seem to be lining up behind Nikki Haley. There are some, of course, who have money, who are supporting Donald Trump. But this is a big feather in the cap of Nikki Haley, because now she gets money, now she gets support, now she has this entire infrastructure behind her campaign, and it will be interesting to see what happens. A lot of people, we said a story yesterday that said, if people are asked, well, Trump, who would you pick as the running mate? Increasingly, it seemed that the name that came up as a running mate for Donald Trump was Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley served in the administration, and I can't remember anything that ended badly with them, that they have been, they've been, as far as I know, friendly. She has not attacked him. And as far as I can remember, until today, Trump had not attacked Nikki Haley. But now that there is big money behind Nikki Haley, Donald Trump will no doubt focus fire upon her as his spokesman did today. So this is very, very interesting. The loser in all this, of course, is Ron DeSantis, who no doubt would have liked to have had the support of some of the money people. And Ron DeSantis' campaign does seem to be, I wouldn't say faltering, but certainly not making any progress, whereas Nikki Haley's campaign does seem to have some little bit of momentum and maybe a little wind behind her back, but a big mountain to climb when you look at the polls regarding Donald Trump. Let me see if I can just pull up some numbers on that right quick, because it really is quite amazing what the recent polls have shown. Go here, and there we go. We get it. There's the 24 election polls. For example, if you look at some of these things, here's the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. Emerson says that it's Trump. This is nationwide. Trump 64, DeSantis 8, Haley 9. But Trump leads by 55 points. If I can find an Iowa number, and I probably can with given enough time here, I think you would find that it would be Trump, and then you would have Nikki Haley and then DeSantis in Iowa. See, what happens in Iowa has a lot can do for a campaign. Let's say even if she doesn't come in, first, and I can't imagine a scenario where she comes in first in Iowa, she comes in a stronger second than she is right now, then her campaign is alive into New Hampshire. And then the third stop is, well, one of the next stops would be South Carolina, her home state. Now, the last poll I saw in South Carolina had Trump way ahead. But it is something to watch. And Nikki Haley is somebody who is apparently garnering the attention and the support of people who can seriously fund a campaign. Now, it's also true that Donald Trump can seriously fund a campaign. Here's another version of it from CNBC. The network, political network largely financed by Charles Koch, endorsed former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley for president Tuesday, boosting her primary campaign against frontrunner Donald Trump. The Haley endorsement by the Koch-backed super PAC Americans for Prosperity Action marks the end of a year-long search for a viable Republican alternative to challenge Trump. Haley has what it takes to lead a policy agenda to take on our nation's biggest challenges and help ensure the country's best days are ahead. Haley said, "I'm honored to have the support of Americans for Prosperity Action, including its millions of grassroots members all across the country. AFP's Action members know that there's too much at stake in this election to sit on the sidelines. This is a choice between freedom and socialism, individual liberty and big government, and fiscal responsibility and spiraling doubt. We have a country to save. I'm grateful to have AFP's Action by our side," said Haley. In addition to an army of volunteers and staff across the country, the PAC has already raised over $70 million in the 2024 election cycle. Charles Koch himself has an estimated net worth of more than $50 billion, according to Forbes. Koch has long supported free market economic policies while championing, to a lesser degree, libertarian-leaning social policies. A separate AFP Action memo Tuesday focused solely on her economic agenda. So a big day for Nikki Haley. Now, I mean, bottom line, let me just bottom line this for you. Even if she's in second place in Iowa, as some polls increasingly suggest, she's going to do fairly well there. When I say fairly well, not well enough, not enough to beat Donald Trump the way it stands. I mean, Donald Trump is just an entity unto himself. But it is interesting that some of the big money people are now lining up behind Nikki Haley, and it'll be interesting to see exactly what that means for her campaign in the days ahead. By the way, Gavin Newsom of California, and Ron DeSantis are preparing to square off on a debate on Fox, even though Gavin Newsom is not a candidate. Well, that's what they say, a candidate for the office of the presidency. This is something that just it looks like it'll be good popcorn. Get some popcorn, get ready. It's going to be fun to watch. DeSantis, it's a rare opportunity to command center stage without anyone stealing his thunder. And then you have Newsom, for his part, clearly positioning himself as a national figure within the Democrat Party in case his name is called. It's the Newsom. It will be called. Other 2024 news, President Joe Biden is not planning any substantive changes to his reelection campaign, despite numerous polls showing him trailing former President Donald Trump in critical swing states and nationally. Trump, the likely Republican nominee, now leads Biden by 2.6% in the Real Clear Politics polling average. And polls from the New York Times, CNN, NPR, and others show Trump beating Biden in 5 of 6 battleground states. Biden still tops Trump in Wisconsin. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday faced a number of questions on Biden's poll during Monday's press briefing, but would not say that Biden had planned any strategy or personnel changes. But the question was asked directly, are you expecting any changes? And her answer was a very succinct and sort of snippy no. Maybe there needs to be a change in the White House communications office. That's what I'm sitting here thinking. Look, it's going to get interesting. I think pretty clear, just big picture, step back, 30,000-foot view. It's going to be hard to stop Trump as the nominee. Haley has got some money and might make a run at him, but things would have to change dramatically. And everybody acknowledges, even with all the money in the world behind you, when you're trying to climb a mountain and have somebody 30, 40, 50 points ahead of you, that's a very, very big deal. But they've got the money to put commercials on and saturate the airwaves on behalf of Nikki Haley, and that could very much have a change in the way the complex texture of this campaign. Right now, it's 20 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. How are you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. Now, wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide that reassurance, and it starts with a simple phone call to this number. If you don't get it the first time, write it down when I give it again toward the end of this ad. 615-488-9303. You give them some information, Beacon will get back with you. You have nothing to lose except for all the worry you have about whether or not you're on the right path. So get started today by calling 615-488-9303. Now, at the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. So replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. The number again, last time, here it is, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away, and you can learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
Suspects in a Murfreesboro murder case have now been found and arrested, and Congressman George Santos doesn't care about expulsion. We'll have those stories 30 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock right here, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
There's Mac Morey there in the newsroom. You want to tune back in, if for nothing else, at 5:20, 5:25 or so when we do the Wide World of Sports with Mac Murray. Or Mac Murray's Wide World of Sports. I forget. We've never really officially decided what the title of the segment is. But one way or the other, if you show up at 5:25, we're going to talk a little sports for a few minutes. And then there's Chris Webber in the control room. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, coming to you from the home studio in bucolic Watertown. And it's been a very busy day here in Watertown, in that this is Puppy Day.
Mm-hmm.
Grogu had, I need to tell you sort of a happy story and a sad story. Grogu had 2 puppies, but one did not survive.
Oh.
So we have one puppy, and we call that one Solo, because it's the solo remaining puppy out of the litter. The small dogs normally have small litters, and it was not surprising that there were only 2 pups. One pup did not make it. And so we're very saddened by that, but we are celebrating the life of this vibrant little dog named Solo, who is doesn't look anything at all like her mom. She's totally gray.
Yeah.
She's what they call a merle. A merle is sort of a grayish, bluish gray.
I'd never heard that term before.
Yeah, she's a girl and she's a merle, and so Mama and the puppy are doing well. As we are it was really a bittersweet moment
yeah, for sure.
Excuse me, in the truest sense of the word, I think, because we had so much invested in this little litter of puppies, and we're very sad. But I think we're moving on, because this is the way life is. Life intervenes, and it never goes quite the way you think it's going to go. But we celebrate Merle, and we sadden the loss of the other little puppy. Who looked a little bit more like Grogu, was sort of light tan, very light tan, and cream colored, and would have been a beautiful dog. But as we have one little girl to celebrate, and we are moving on. So here's what I'm going to do. We have this thing called Super Talk TV. There's a lot of ways, Chris, we can see Super Talk TV. Tell people just some of the ways that they can watch what's happening on Super Talk TV.
Well, you could see us on Facebook, on YouTube, on X, formerly known as Twitter, on, what's the other one called?
Twitch.
Twitch. Yeah. I forgot. How did I forget Twitch?
Yeah.
And I think you can also link up to it on our website, 997WTN.com.
Right. At 4:05, on this camera that I use from bucolic Watertown, we're going to bring little Solo over, and you'll get your first. The world will get their first glimpse of Solo on Super Talk TV.
I don't know if you had to have done this on purpose, but it also, I know Solo as in it's the one puppy, but it also keeps the Star Wars theme going. It
was exactly what I was thinking. If we'd had a boy, we would have going to call it Mando.
Ooh, nice. I like
Grogu and Mando. But since it's we decided, well, it is the only one, so it is Solo. So it's a Star Wars reference, but it's also because it's the single pup. So and by the way, Grogu was a single pup.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is it's not unusual in the French bulldog world. So anyway, we'll do that at 4:05. So if you want to get a gander at little Solo, who is. This dog's got, I can already tell, it's going to be a lot to handle. She is not being quiet at all about her demand to feed on a very regular schedule. And Dawn is Cabana Wife is very much involved in the moment by moment supervision of Merle. So Cabana Wife will bring her over at 4:05, and we'll do just a little brief moment before we get into the news of the day. All right. So there you go. That and listen. It's these puppies have brought a lot of joy, and the Grogu has brought a lot of joy, and I'm certain Merle will bring another additional level of joy to our lives. So we're looking forward to the journey. All right. It is now 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
30 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 41 degrees, and we'll tell you what the rest of this week's looking like weather-wise. Got a weather forecast coming up and a traffic report 5 minutes away. This just in from Channel 4. The 3 suspects accused of stabbing a man outside of Kelton Hardware in Murfreesboro have now been arrested following a brief police chase. License plate readers helped locate the 3 in Clarksville this afternoon. One of the 3 had to be chased down on foot. The victim remains in critical condition. One of the suspects, an unidentified man, is being held at the Montgomery County Jail on attempted first-degree murder charges, and the 2 juvenile suspects will be held at the Rutherford Juvenile Detention Center, where juvenile petitions for first-degree murder will be served. And the clock now ticking on New York Republican George Santos' time as a congressman. Stephen Portnoy has more.
Resolved. California Democrat Robert Garcia took to the floor to force a vote this week on a resolution to expel George Santos. The embattled New York Republican has said he expects to be ousted by a required 2/3 vote, and he told reporters outside his office,
"I don't care."
Santos, who faces a 23-count federal indictment, stands accused by the Ethics Committee of stealing from his campaign. He says it's not worth his time to convince colleagues to let him stay.
If this city put the effort to fixing our country the same way that they put on expelling me, we'd be in a better place.
And something interesting is happening in the San Francisco Bay Area. The salmon run is huge this year, and the fish themselves are physically huge. Alex Stone reports from California.
Creeks and streams around the Bay Area are seeing incredible amounts of Chinook salmon. Some creeks right along homes and major roads, and the salmon are big, like 45 inches long. Steve Holmes with the South Bay Clean Creeks Association says it's believed efforts to clean up creeks and streams have more Chinook salmon coming back to spawn.
We're giving these fish a chance to start increasing in size and population.
But why they're so massive this year, they don't know. They think maybe because the fishing seasons were closed in past years, allowing the fish to balloon in size, or environmental changes might be impacting the food they're eating.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Let me tell you about Grace Point Healthcare. Grace Point delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing, so you know how much it will cost before the care is actually delivered. They have these things called Smart Care plans, just $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. In conjunction with a high-deductible insurance plan, this will save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, they take a time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms, and they treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider time and time again. Grace Point wants you to know they believe strongly in freedom of choice when it comes to vaccines for you and your children, and they have COVID testing and treatment. Should you think you got a case of COVID, go by real quick and get some treatment, and they'll tell you whether you have it and get you on your way to make you feel better as soon as possible. Grace Point Healthcare, Main Street in Franklin, 615-599-6868 to schedule a visit. 3:37 on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy on this Tuesday, November 28th. I am happy to be here with you as we bring you home safely, and you get home safely. You'll have things to talk about today because we got a lot of stuff happening in the news. We'll get to it as the afternoon progresses. Today, Governor Bill Lee unveiled his new school voucher program. And I'm telling you, let me just step back for a moment before I get into the details of that to talk about, Governor Bill Lee. I think that Governor Bill Lee, my personal opinion is, and I've been around him a little and I've studied him a lot, and I think he's a very good man. I like him as an individual. I like him. Most about the stuff I like about him as governor, I've been very supportive of everything he did. Now, I couldn't be with him on the red flag law last year because I just didn't think that was the right way to go. I think there were a lot of reasons why it didn't make sense to go forward with a red flag law, mainly because how can you make a good decision about what is the right solution? I mean, what problem were we trying to solve? We were trying to have a conversation in this state following the Covenant School shooting. And as a matter of that, it was really hard for us to know what is the right approach when we don't really know the motivation of the shooter. And that would be revealed in the so-called manifestos and the writings of the individual. Not to promote the individual, but to understand how this happened so that we could make good decisions about how we might prevent something like that from happening again. And I just didn't feel like going in with all, excuse the bad pun, guns blazing on a proposal that was not going to, I think, really get at the real issue. I couldn't support him on it. Now, that doesn't mean I don't like the governor. I like him quite a lot, and I think he's a good Christian man. I think he is a compassionate man, and I think he wants to do right by the children of Tennessee. So, with that said, I just want you to know that even though I have not always been with the governor, I generally am supportive of what this governor wants to do. And I am going to be 1,000% on board with the idea of these vouchers. Now, look, is it a perfect solution? No. But what we have right now is a really broken educational system in some parts of Tennessee. Now, there are places where, parents are very happy with their public schools. And I say, good on you. That's great. That's fantastic. That's wonderful. Keep rocking along. I hope your kids are doing well. I want them to prosper. But there are also some school districts in this state of Tennessee that are miserably failing the young people of the state of Tennessee here in the volunteer state. Kids are not getting a good education in some areas. And we need to do something about it. Is this solution perfect? No, but it certainly gives more kids options. So here's what we know about the voucher system now. It was proposed that the first year will be the 24-25 school year, so that would be starting next fall, as I understand. Is that right? Yeah, that'd be next spring. That'd be next spring. 24 when we start the new school year, and it goes all the way through 25. They would offer 20,000 Tennessee students about $7,000 to attend a private school of their choice. Grants could be used for any private school and most homeschools. In other words, you could get this money to support your homeschooling effort if you wanted to. A formal fiscal analysis is not available, according to the Tennessean, but based on the number of students targeted, the program would cost the state about $141.5 million. And we got it. Okay? We have the money. We have a very healthy budget and a very healthy rainy day fund here in the state of Tennessee. So we have the ability to do this. Now, that would be just for the cost of the students. There would be some administrative cost. It's not real clear where that money would come from, but we'll get those details as we go forward. The program would provide state funds to 20,000 out of a roughly 1 million school students in Tennessee, regardless of where in the state they live. And during the first year of the program, the governor's office says 10,000 grants will be reserved for students whose families' incomes are below 300% of the federal poverty level, students with disability, and those who are eligible for the existing Education Savings Account pilot program. then the remaining 10,000 slots in the first year would be made available to any student currently entitled to attend a public school. So is this the answer for everyone? The answer is no. But then, and this is an important thing to note, by the time they ramp up to year number 2, the 25-26 school year, eligibility for the scholarships would be open to all Tennessee students, regardless of income or previous school enrollment. Okay? Participating families could use education, Freedom Scholarship funds for private school tuition, fees, uniforms, textbooks, tutoring services, transportation expenses, computer and technology, summer and after-school program fees, and fees associated with college entrance exams like the SAT, the ACT, the AP, and the state-recognized industry certification exams. It's unclear whether there'll be state testing required. We do have a school choice program. Tennessee offers a education savings account program in low and middle-income students in Davidson County, Shelby, and Hamilton counties. And they get grants right now of about $9,000 to attend participating state-approved private and parochial schools. So that would apparently be phased out, and the new plan would be phased in. Lee's announcement this week is the first step in a long legislative process that will begin when lawmakers return to the state capitol. Once the legislation is filed, it will have to pass at least 2 Senate committees and 5 House committees before going to both chamber floors for a final vote. Now, I don't want to soft sell this. This is going to, I think, a heavier lift than you might imagine. Republicans are absolutely in control of the process up on Tennessee's Capitol Hill, but this is going to be harder than you might imagine because it's a change. School districts all across the state of Tennessee are going to be apprehensive about this because if you offer money to go to a private school, then you are basically taking kids out of the school system that they're in, and that will irritate, that will concern many school districts, and so you're going to have the teachers who may be aligned against it. In the state of Tennessee, you're going to have some administrators and teachers and school board presidents and school board superintendents who are just not going to like the idea that we're changing things, that there's a formula change, and that they may end up with less money than they had before. But they're also going to end up with fewer students. How is that not? That is not necessarily a bad thing. If you have fewer students, guess what you can do? You can give more attention to those students. Fewer students, you try to keep the same level of teachers if you can, and therefore each student will have more teacher attention. And that is important. The size of the classroom matters when you're trying to bring all the kids along. So this is going to be a heavy lift. And again, it starts, I'm trying to figure this out. If we say the 24-25, that would be the fall of 24 into the end of 25 school year, which would be sometime May and June. Okay, so that would start in the fall of next year, and then the 25 to 26 would start in the fall of 25 and go into the end of the school year in 26. And I think this is a good plan. Most importantly, I just want to say this as we get into this thing, because there's going to be a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth, and there's going to be people to say it won't work, it's different, we don't like it. There's a whole lot of people who are going to be resistant to change, but change is not always bad. And to anybody who wants to complain about this program and how it might change system, and they don't like this, they're going to come up with this reason and that reason why we shouldn't do it. I just want to say one thing. Are you raising these concerns out of concern for your own well-being and the status quo, or are you raising these concerns because that you think kids will not get a good education? I say that parents should have the opportunity to take their kids anywhere. There should not be if you can, if you can afford it, you could do that now. But what about the kids who can't go to a private school and find themselves in a failing school now? There ought to be some place for those to go. We should not reward school districts that aren't getting the job done. And if you're losing a lot of students because you're not getting the job done, then I think you need to look at yourself and say, well, maybe we need to do a better job. Maybe we need to find a way to make this work. And again, if you're happy with your kid's school and you feel like your kid's in a good place and the teachers are good and your school is getting it done, then it doesn't change things for you at all. But if you're in a school district where you feel like your kid is not getting an education, is not getting the backup, the support that they need to thrive, to earn a good education, so that they can either go to college or go to a trade school or just go out into the work world prepared, then you ought to have an opportunity to take your kid someplace else. And I think this gives that opportunity to a fair number of kids in the first year, and if I'm reading this correctly, to any kid in the second year. I like it. Now, we can get off in the weeds on a bunch of discussions about, well, what about kids who already go to private schools? Is this fair? The parents are carrying the load of that. Well, like I say, there are no perfect solutions, but what I will say to you time and time again is that we have a lot of imperfect schools. That's the problem. That's what we ought to be zeroed in like a laser beam. So this governor's come up with a plan. Will it be adjusted somewhat? Maybe. Will it be finessed a little bit and fine-tuned? Maybe, and that's okay. But I know you're going to hear a lot of wailing and gnashing, and people are going to, be crying and moaning and groaning about, well, it's different, and, the public schools are not going to survive. I think the public schools are going to be just fine. And I think this is the way to go. So I want to just say to the governor's office, I'm anxious to hear more about this plan. I'd love to have the governor come on and talk about it. That would be fine. He will. I'm very interested in getting more of the details. But this is I think a positive direction for us to go. When the insane thing to do in some circumstances would be to just continue on as we are and let our students fail, and that's just really not an option, is it? Let's try to do better for our kids. And since there are schools that are miserably failing and the test scores show that, well, why don't we try something that will give the kids at least a better chance of actually doing well, to get them ready? Tennessee needs to have a change. The status quo is not acceptable. And I think this is a good start in the right direction to shaking things up and doing well by the children of the volunteer state. 51 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
If you have a 401k at work, chances are you've seen something called a target date fund. Now, the idea behind a target date fund is if you're going to retire in a specific year, let's say 2030, all you do is put all your money in that fund. You don't even have to think about it. Set it and forget it is the idea. Now, one of the things that I warn people about regarding these types of funds is many times they're not nearly as diversified as you think. When we look at investing, when we look at diversification, we want to own really small companies, really large companies, really growth-oriented, really value-oriented companies, and diversify between these different market areas. Target date funds tend to focus more attention down here for a really basic reason. It sells better. Because you're investing in very big, well-known U.S. companies, what happens is investors tend to like to look like the market, as we say. And the problem, though, is when we do that, is we can go very long periods of time. 1966 through 1982 is one example. More recently, 2000 through 2012, where large U.S. stocks had no return, where other market segments actually did quite well. So one of the things that happens is when we invest in a target date fund, we may be overly concentrated and have more risk than we really realize. So if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning and how we educate investors, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.
Governor Lee officially unveiling his school voucher plan. Hawaii's Attorney General trying to get to the bottom of the wildfires on Lahaina. And a police portal coming to Tennessee. We'll explain at 4 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
And I just want to say, if you want to meet Little Solo, our our newest addition here to the Wilson family. You want to be on Super Talk TV at 4:05 right after the news with Mac Maury. It's time to look at the markets. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 83, S&P up 4, NASDAQ up 40. So all screens are green. I wouldn't say they're vibrantly green, but they're up a little bit. I think let's check in with John Maxon over at Beacon Capital Management. John, it seems like everybody's got an eye to what might happen with regard to interest rates, and they're waiting for more information.
Yeah, Brian, that's right. I mean, the market seems to be stuck in sort of this tight range. Look, if the day was green, we'll take that. But you got to have these conflicting messages. We've got the Federal Reserve President Jerome Powell that's speaking on Friday, and then the Fed's favored inflation number is going to be coming out on Thursday. But today you had a couple of different Fed presidents. One said that they are expecting to hold rates tight. The other one said they're expecting to raise them. So the market's really looking for direction. So Thursday and Friday will be a big day. Right now on Wall Street, there's approximately a 96% chance that they hold rates steady, which I think the market would like to see. And on a side note, consumer confidence did climb this week. So a lot this week about interest rates coming, especially towards the end of the week. All
right. Thank you, John Maxon. Learn more about all the things they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is 59 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock.
.401, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 40 degrees, a sunny day on Music Row. Expecting some temperature changes coming on later this week. Got a traffic report and a weather forecast that'll tell you all about it coming up in 5 minutes. Right now in the volunteer state, Governor Lee officially unveiled his school voucher program today, calling it the Education Freedom Announcement.
Access to a high-quality education has the power to change the trajectory of a child's life forever. And there is no question that today is the time that we need to allow parents who know best what's best for their child as it relates to education, that we need to give those parents choices.
And this Education Freedom Scholarships Act would give a minimum of 10,000 students across the state $7,000 each to attend the private school of their choice by the 2025-2026 school year. And if passed for the upcoming school year, the act will award a total of 20,000 scholarships on a first-come, first-served basis for Tennessee residents to attend private school or homeschools of their choosing. And over in Hawaii, their attorney general right now issuing subpoenas to Maui County government offices as part of an investigation into the response to August's wildfire that killed 100 people on Lahaina. A 100th victim died recently from fire injuries. Alex Stone reports.
Among the Maui County agencies receiving subpoenas, Maui Emergency Management. Its director quit after questions were raised about his experience for the job. He also raised eyebrows when he indicated tsunami sirens would have caused residents to run toward the flames. Those flames were coming from higher ground. He said,
"The public is trained to seek higher ground in the event that the siren is sounded."
Investigators are looking into whether those sirens should have been sounded.
Some law enforcement news in Tennessee. Channel 4 reports that Metro Police are starting an online portal that will allow citizens to notify officials of any non-violent crimes. It's a part of the expansion that's part of the Citizen Online Reporting or core system, which was developed by LexisNexis. The expansion will allow for the following incidents to be reported in this system: shoplifting, fuel drive-off, theft of services from restaurants, harassing phone calls if no threats were made, lost property, package theft, and any suspicious activity that's not in progress. Metro says that you can request an officer as well if you don't want to use the online portal. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. 7 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, in for hour number 2 of The Drive on this Tuesday, November 28th, a momentous day here in our stately Wilson Manor. This is Puppy Day. We have a puppy. It's been an eventful day, but we thought just for a moment we would take a pause from the news of the day to just look at a cute puppy, because Grogu had her puppy this morning, and the puppy's name is Solo, and Cabana Wife has arrived here in studio. I'm going to pull the microphone back just a little bit so I can show you on the camera, if you're watching on Super Talk TV, this cute little nugget that we call Solo.
Oh,
here we go, everybody. There's Solo. Can you see Solo there? Yeah, I know. Hang on. Solo just peed on me a moment ago, so I'm gonna stand up so you can get a good look close up to the camera. Here we go.
We need a little music here.
Oh, so
Yeah,
cute.
that's right.
Look at that.
Oh,
Yeah. All right.
oh,
That's
that's
enough.
sweet.
That's enough stimulation for that little girl today. But there you go. Thank you. And listen, everybody's been so nice. I posted some pictures online earlier today. Thank you, Cabana Wife, for bringing a little nugget over. We posted some pictures online today, and we'll post more, of course. You know, the puppies won't open their eye. The puppy won't open her eyes for 4 or 5 weeks, maybe. I don't know, something like that.
Oh wow, really? Okay.
It's going to be a while. So
yeah, I guess that's right.
we are in the middle of every 2-hour feedings here at our house. So
Well, that sounds fun.
over the course of the next few days, if I sound a little tired, it's going to be because somebody's got to get up at 2 o'clock and somebody's got to get up at 4 o'clock to feed the puppy, make sure the puppy gets fed. They need a little help along the way, but we're very excited about the arrival of young Solo. And so, we're celebrating that today at the Wilson household, and it's been a little crazy. And now, for the rest of the show, I shall smell like puppy pee.
Just a little christening for you there, Brian.
That's right. Thank you for all the nice comments. We greatly appreciate it. All right, let's move on because we have a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm going to tell you right now that there is a story that is not being widely reported. We're talking a lot about what's going on in the Mideast. We're talking a lot about what's going on in Washington. We're talking about the 2024. We have seemingly lost interest in what's happening on the border, and things are crazy. There is a Bill Malusian, who covers that beat for Fox, says that yesterday, Monday, there were 2,800 illegal crossings at the Tucson checkpoint alone. And that's far more than they've ever had. And they were completely overrun. They had to close up several of the points of entry. And they also then had to close these checkpoints that they have between on the highways and stuff. And that's where they get the fentanyl, and that's where they sometimes find a lot of people coming in on trucks. Basically, they had to leave a lot of the border unguarded to handle paperwork for 2,800 illegal crossings that happened in the Tucson sector yesterday. They closed the checkpoints at Lukeville. They closed the checkpoints at Nogales. And they are completely being overrun. So there is another surge and more trains coming. I mean, everywhere you look, and you can see these pictures online of train after train after train. Migrants are hitching a ride. They're riding on top of boxcars. It's inside boxcars, on top of other train cars, on their way to the northern border of Mexico, so they can then cross the river and come across to the United States. It is a surge as big as any that we have seen, and nobody really, by and large, is covering. Well, they got a Fox Business reporter by the name of Madison Allsworth, who is that down there, and here she is.
Stuart, we have new numbers, a new report from the U.S. House Committee on Homeland Security majority. They say the price tag per year is $451 billion. That is both for the housing and care of the asylum seekers as well as those known gotaways.
And she's talking to Chris Oliveras, who is a spokesman on behalf of the Texas DPS. The Border Patrol, you know, they won't talk to you sometimes because they can't. Only the union people can speak on behalf of the Border Patrol agents. But Oliveras says that there are a lot of trains coming this way.
Well, typically is what we see when we see these type of caravans. The method of transportation is usually trains. And once they make it to the northern part of Mexico, they'll get broken up into smaller groups, and then we'll see them cross between the ports of entry. Now, we do expect the train to arrive very soon. But of course, we've been seeing a constant flow here in Eagle Pass with illegal immigrants crossing between ports of entry. And when we talk about the gotaways, we talk about the sheer number of people that are crossing. Well, the taxpayer, the communities here in Eagle Pass are having to shoulder that burden. And it's our responsibility as a state to try to prevent some of these illegal crossings. But as long as the federal government continues to incentivize illegal immigration, we're going to continue seeing this flow of illegal immigration between ports of entry and also these trains and caravans making their way to the border.
All right, here's some more on that. Homeland Security said Monday it will reduce or shut down some lanes of traffic at border crossings in Arizona and Texas to redeploy staff to handle a renewed surge of migrants entering illegally. Customs and Border Protection, which oversees the ports of entry, blames smugglers peddling disinformation for the surge of people. The affected border crossings are in Lukeville, Arizona, where the Customs and Border Protection folks said it will throttle down vehicle processing. By the way, that's where they catch a lot of the fentanyl. And International Bridge 1 in Eagle Pass, Texas, as you just heard the report from there, where vehicle processing is halted. Nobody's coming across at all. The agency, in an unsigned statement, said it needed to shift the officers who usually staff those posted-out Border Patrol agents who patrol the miles in between the crossings and who have been overwhelmed by the crush of people. I suspect they're being called over to handle paperwork. The U.S. is continuing to see increased levels of migrant encounters at the southwest border, fueled by smugglers peddling disinformation to prey upon vulnerable individuals and to encourage migration. As we respond with additional resources and apply consequences for unlawful entry, the migration trends shift as well. The agency did not say what the current level of illegal crossings were, but as I told you, in the Tucson sector, it was 2,800 in one day. One day, one crossing, one state. So do your math. Now, let me just talk for a moment about what I think this is all about. I have been criticized in some quarters for continuing to say that this is all about politics. That the Biden administration has opened the border and has implemented weak border policies because they want the influx of people from Mexico. And I think it's all political. I think it's very political. And then when you say, well, hold on a minute, those people coming in across will not be legal citizens, so they will not be able to vote. Well, how long do you think they're going to be held in limbo? If you listen carefully to what Secretary of Homeland Security Alexandra Mayorkas has said in a recent interview, you'll hear exactly what he wants. He says it without saying the word, but when it's all over and after you hear this soundbite, I'll tell you what the word is in case you missed it. You ready? Here is Alexandra Mayorkas being questioned on one of the cable talk shows.
It also doesn't address the other sort of elephant in the room, which is dealing with the undocumented immigrants who are already here in the nation. And I know it's been a political football as to trying to figure out the best way to address that. But I'm going to ask you, what is the best way to address that from your perspective?
The answer is quite clear and quite straightforward, and we've been waiting for it for about 30 years.
Well, it may be clear and straightforward, but he's not going to give you an actual straightforward answer. But listen carefully.
And that is to fix a system that everyone agrees is fundamentally broken, and we need congressional action.
And he keeps talking about congressional action, and we need to fix this situation. because it's broken. Well, what is the solution in his mind?
Both for the lawful pathways that really need to be more robust in statute, and for the 12 million people who are here in the United States who have been contributing so fundamentally to our country's well-being. They're our neighbors, our friends, our fellow congregants. They provide our frontline workers. We need to do something, and I am hopeful and remain hopeful that Congress will do it. The president, on his first day in office, presented Congress with a proposal.
There's a lot of gobbledygook in there, but what he's really saying is it boils down to one word: amnesty. Mayorkas is saying that the problem is, and he says pathways are needed. He's talking about pathways to citizenship. So their plan all along, and he even admits that even on day one, we were upfront about this, is that they wanted to get a bunch of people to come into this country and then find a pathway to citizenship or grant them amnesty, let them become American citizens so they can fundamentally change the voting demographics of this country. It is a political operation. Bring people in, and then, if we can find a way, we're going to make them all American citizens so they can vote, and they're going to vote for Democrats because we're the ones who let them in. That has always been the plan of the Biden administration. And here you have an admission. Congress needs to fix a broken system. Well, it wasn't broken, in my estimation, when Donald Trump was president. We had a relatively secure border. Was it perfect? No. Was it better than we have now? Damn straight it was. Absolutely it was. There's no doubt in my mind that it was better. But today, even I've talked to sheriffs down in that part of the region, down in Southwest Texas. I've talked to them. I've been there, and they all say the same thing. Just a few days before Joe Biden raised his hand and took the oath of office, the surge began. And nothing that the Biden administration has done has effectively discouraged that surge. Everything that they have done in the interpretation of their policies and the reduced coverage and the decisions of how they're going to handle people who come across the border basically is give them a piece of paper, send them across. We are a less safe nation because of that policy. There are no telling how many terrorists in this country that came across the southwest border. We know some that have been caught. We know there are about 1.8 million that have crossed that have never come in contact with any law enforcement authority. They slipped across the border. The so-called gotaways are in this country now. We don't know crap about them. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they're up to. And the bottom line is they put us at risk. They allowed fentanyl to come across the border. They put people in positions where they're going to suffer as they cross the southwest border. There is human trafficking. There's all kinds of bad stuff that comes along with their border policy, but understand, never lose sight of the fact of why they did it. They want a pathway to citizenship, and you've just heard Alejandro Mayorkas admit as much. Oh, sure, it's in a bunch of gobbledygook, but he is saying clearly what they want is a pathway to citizenship for the people who did not follow the rules when they came into this country. 21 minutes now, past the hour of 4 o'clock. We tell you about Nashville Golden Coin and about gold in general. You know, gold has been used as money for millennia. It is a tried and true store of value and is consistent with generations, across generations. Generational wealth, they say, have three components: land, art, and precious metals. Well, land and art, well, that can be hard to evaluate and hard to afford if you've seen interest rates lately. But precious metals like gold and platinum and silver can be practical solutions. You see, inflation is currently decreasing the value of your money, and gold and silver can be a safe haven during uncertain economic times. Now, do you have gold that was given to you and that you're curious about what it's worth, or you're just curious about precious metals in general and want to learn more? You can learn all about the importance of owning precious metals by going to Nashville Gold and Coin. Now, they're always available to discuss your options, educate you on the precious metals market, and do what I do. Go to Nashville's real money source, Nashville's Gold and Coin, and you can set up your one-on-one appointment by going to their website, NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Specifically regarding precision ag, this is a movement or an initiative that Pheasants and Quail Forever is taking on where we can help farmers take advantage of the data they collect and during harvest, during planting season, and use that to identify areas in the field that are underproducing for whatever reason. Maybe it's shade, water, there's perennial wet spots, odd areas that are just hard to farm. Farm equipment's getting big now, and it's hard to farm some of these smaller areas. And so these areas that the yield isn't high enough to exceed the input costs, we're losing money on those acres. So are there some alternate land use covers, wildlife covers that we can use and put on the ground that benefit wildlife but also benefit the bottom line? There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of conservation programs and conservation practices out there that can benefit the land, and they require management. And so some people might be familiar with the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP. And that is a program administered by USDA for farmers and landowners to take those certain areas out of production and return them to a wildlife cover beneficial to different wildlife.
We started taking non-productive acres years ago and putting them in CRP, and seeing a great benefit of that, not only for wildlife, but erosion control and the money side of it. You know, we have to make a living to stay in business just like everybody else. You know, if you've got non-productive acres that you're losing money on, and you can get something out of them, plus benefit the soil from erosion, plus benefit the wildlife.
Taking a look at the rapidly escalating response as far as humanitarian aid's concerned from the United States over to Gaza, and the money news latest on Wall Street here. 4:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
26 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. You're listening to The Drive on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air all the way until 7. You know, at 7 o'clock we hand it over. And boy, I mean, the fun just continues here on Super Talk because you got the one, the only Mark Levin who carries on after we get done here. When we've exhausted everything we have to get off our chest and we've done our day's work, then Mark Levin is just getting started. And I always like listening to Mark. By the way, you know, I people say, well, what's he like? He's actually a charming, very sweet fellow. You would never. I know he comes across.
What do you mean?
What do you mean, you dyke? Get off my radio. No, he's a good guy, and he's really. We used to do events with him in D.C. over when I was at WMAL, and he's always a sweet. By the way, a real lover of animals. And when we would do the events, you know, we'd always, you know, have a little honorarium for him, and all of that would be donated to some charity for puppies or dogs or cats or something. So he really loves animals. He's just a good guy. I want to talk about more examples of wokeness, and these are not necessarily in our backyard, but again, I think it just tells you that that there are places in this country where, and it could be in your own backyard if you're not aware of the things that are going on, where these things are taking place, and you just need to have your antenna up for them. Here is from Arizona. Arizona's largest school district, according to justthenews.com, shows kids how to hide gender transition from parents. Mesa Public Schools gave kids a, quote, more subtle way to subvert parents' Bill of Rights and governing board after a community backlash by telling them they would trigger notification, board member alleges. Here's the details. Arizona's largest school district is flouting state law and its own governing board by covertly instructing students how to assert a different gender identity at school without their parents knowing and hiding evidence of its misdeeds, according to an outspoken member of the board. Former President Trump's aide, Stephen Miller's America's First Legal, is representing Rachel Walden in her Maricopa County Superior Court lawsuit against Mesa Public Schools and Superintendent Andy Forlis, which alleges they schemed to circumvent the Arizona Parents' Bill of Rights. See, the state legislature passed a bill that said you're not supposed to be able to do this, but they found ways to circumvent the law. Walden also claims the board never voted to adopt or authorize the contested gender transition policy, whose heading is dated August 2015, or any of its constituents elements, which additionally determine access to things like restrooms, locker rooms, field trips, overnight trips, and gendered activities such as sports. While the transgender policy created 8 years ago initially required parental consent, it was revised at some point to be explicit and in writing. In other words, if your kid comes to school and they pull him in and he says, I want to identify as a gender other than the one I was born with, then the school is supposed to bring the parents into that according to the law in Arizona. And then they revised the law to make it more strict and stern, saying that not only do you have to notify them, it has to be explicit. You have to be completely straightforward with the parents, and you must do it in writing. And now, apparently, students can veto that notification, and the Mesa Public School districts are allowing the child to go by the gender identity at school, one identity at school and a different one at home, and not have the parents alerted to any conversation. It's not that I have a problem with somebody who wants to identify as a gender other. There's enough libertarian in me. Live and let live, baby. I mean, I don't care. It's not my thing, but as long as you don't bother me, I won't bother you, and everything will be fine. I really don't have a problem with that. Honestly, I don't. But I do have a problem with something of this magnitude happening at school with a child who is a minor and not alerting the parents and bringing the parents into the conversation. That is something that should never happen. The schools are not raising these children. The schools are supposed to be educating these children. It's the parents' responsibility to raise the children and to deal with issues in the way that they think it best should be dealt with. And I just don't like the idea of schools usurping the authority of the legitimate parents of these students. Again, 2,500 respondents, about 40% each Republican and Democrat and 20% independent. 2 in 3 favored parental notification when students assert gender identities and pronouns at odds with their sex in school. Yeah, most common sense people would agree the parents have a right to be involved in the decisions being made by their children. What a concept. 31 past the hour now of 4 o'clock.
4:30, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 39 degrees in Nashville, set for a little bit of a chillier night than last night, but some warmer temperatures along the way the rest of this week. A full forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Over in the Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza, rapidly escalating response to the humanitarian crisis there in Gaza. Pentagon officials say the United States airlifted more than 54,000 pounds of UN humanitarian supplies, including medical supplies, warm clothing, and food to the people of Gaza today. Answering questions at the Pentagon briefing, Brigadier General Pat Ryder confirmed it's the first time that U.S. aircrafts were involved in such a mission.
Is that the first time that a U.S. military aircraft has been used to fly aid for Gazans?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
In terms of
I'm sorry?
In terms of humanitarian assistance aid, correct.
And more hostages expected to be released today by Hamas as this temporary truce stays intact. Now over to the money news with Daria Albinger.
Stocks closed mostly higher on a strong economic report. The Dow added 84 for the day, the Nasdaq closed up 41, and the S&P rose 4. Earnings season rolls on with Intuit among the companies reporting after the close, its latest numbers beating analysts' expectations. Consumer confidence remains strong heading into the holiday shopping season. The Conference Board's November survey topped economists' forecasts. That's important because consumer spending accounts for about 70% of U.S. economic activity. It's one of several economic updates this week, which could offer more clues about a number of things, including whether the rate of inflation is easing, and if so, by how much. You can look for personal income and consumer spending on Thursday. Wall Street is counting on the Fed to start cutting interest rates from their highest level in 2 decades and to begin doing it by the middle of next year.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
I got some big news from the folks over at DT McCall's. If you've been thinking of buying a gun safe but putting it off, now is the time. You see, gun safes are sales tax free. That's right, sales tax free. It's hunting season, so make sure you're keeping your gun safe when you're not in the tree stand with a gun safe from DT McCall's. Now, DT McCall's is the largest Liberty Safe dealer in all of Tennessee. And why? Well, they have free delivery and setup. I mean, some others charge $500 at least for delivery and the setup of the bigger models, and $300 for the smaller models. DT McCall & Sons delivers every safe free, every time period, no setup charge. Security is so important these days, and here's something to think about. Gun safes can be used for other things, such as valuables, cash, jewelry, important documents, wills, deeds, car titles, whatever you need to keep safe from theft or fire. So save some big bucks now on your gun safe when you shop at your local DT McCall's. Go to dtmccalls.com for locations and information.
Awaken 180 is my solution for weight loss.
Laughing, learning, friendships. Not the words normally associated with trying to lose weight. But with Awaken 180, you're not trying. Weekly weight loss while gaining the tools to keep it off. Free support for life, friends for life. Learn how over 17,000 clients succeeded with the solution for weight loss.
38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair, and you're listening to The Drive on this November 28th. Just in case you have lost track, it is 26 shopping days until Christmas, 48 days until the voting begins in the 2024 presidential nominating process. I mean, things are starting to happen in that regard. And in at least, I don't know, 3 hours until I can get a good stiff drink. Okay, let's get on. Moving on. Hunter Biden requests, and boy, do I need it today. Hunter Biden requests a public hearing. Now, you know that we've been following the story of Hunter Biden and the investigation that's ongoing by the House Oversight Committee. I have a feeling. I'm going to give you my feeling, my guess, my hunch, and then I'm going to read you what the latest developments are. I think that the House Oversight Committee, they recently got bank records that have really opened up the case a lot. Now, they've revealed some of it, like $240,000 worth of payments that went from James Biden to Joe Biden from a personal account to personal account, which they say is repayment for a debt. Well, what's the debt? Where was the debt incurred? What's the debt about? They won't say. And so, the president is not going to help them. And getting the president's bank records may be a bit more difficult. But they've gotten a lot of the records of some of the family members. And I suspect that as they put that all together and they start meshing that information about the flow of money from the various shell corporations, from seedy business partners through a series of complex shell companies designed to help it make it almost impossible to track where the money went into the personal accounts. And then now some $240,000 we know went to the president. Now, what is it for? That is what they're trying to prove. Because if they can prove that Joe Biden understood what the family business was, and Joe Biden was doing things on behalf of the people that Hunter Biden was doing business with, that's called quid pro quo. And if money then ended up in his personal bank accounts as a result of it, that's a slam dunk. That's game, set, and match. So I suspect they have more information than they have publicly revealed. And they wanted to have testimony behind closed doors, sworn deposition by Hunter Biden and many of the business partners and James Biden. And so the question was Hunter Biden going to fight that? Well, here's how it revealed itself. Remember, the committee wanted to do it in a closed-door deposition, behind closed doors, at least initially. From thehill.com, Hunter Biden is willing to testify in public before the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, which is investigating his business dealings as part of an impeachment investigation into his father, President Biden. Hunter Biden's attorney, Abby Lowell, wrote a letter Tuesday proposing a public hearing in response to a subpoena sent by the committee led by Chair James Comer earlier in November. Now, the committee had sought a closed-door deposition on December 13th, not that far from now. But Lowell wrote that it did not trust Comer and Republicans to provide a truthful account of such an event. This is from the letter that Abby Lowell, Hunter Biden's attorney, wrote to the committee. We have seen you use closed-door sessions to manipulate, even distort the facts and misinform the public. We therefore propose opening the door, Lowell wrote in a letter to Comer on Tuesday. If, as you claim, your efforts are important and involve issues that Americans should know about, then let the light shine on these proceedings. Now, Lowell noted that Comer had previously said that Hunter Biden is more than welcome before the committee. Accordingly, our client will get right to it by agreeing to answer any pertinent and relevant questions you or your colleagues might have, but rather than subscribe to your cloaked one-sided process, he will appear at a public oversight and accountable committee hearing, Lowell said. Abby Lowell, I don't know where to tell you about this guy. This guy is a bulldog of a lawyer. I mean, honestly, if you're a Democrat and you're in trouble, one of the first calls you make is to Abby Lowell. He's very partisan. He is hard-nosed. He plays it about as rough as anybody in Washington. and he's trying to have his say over the process. But the process has always been bring folks in behind closed doors and show them documents and not make it turn into a big dog and pony show. The reason that Abby Lowell wants this in a public hearing is he knows that half of the questions will come from sympathetic Democrats. So you won't really get as much in a public setting as you would in a closed-door deposition. And they want to show him documents. They want to ask him detailed questions. They want to get through all that, and that's why they're asking for a closed-door deposition rather than a public hearing, which will be sort of a dog and pony show because Democrats will try to muddy the water every other question. Now, that's the way that Abby Lowell wants it. He wants to muddy the water. Oh, he'll get right to answering any pertinent questions you have. But they understand in that setting, half of the questions are going to be asked by sympathetic Democrats who will then attack the process. But don't underestimate Abby Lowell's ability to prep his witness to be very combative. But you can't pull that off at a closed-door deposition. I mean, you can, but I mean, eventually you get shown paperwork. You got, show me what this means. Who is this? What is this transaction? And what's this all about? And showing him the evidence. And then, then maybe you can go out and have the public hearing. But after you know everything that individual knows, that you've gotten all the information from that person. Now, I suspect that if there's a closed-door session, you're going to get a lot of Fifth Amendment from Hunter Biden. So what has James Comer said in response to this letter? He has said, well, look, we have a process, and you're nobody special. You are a person who needs to follow the rules just like everybody else has followed, and we have subpoenaed you to come to a deposition, and we expect you at that deposition on December 13th, and it will be behind closed doors. Now, we also agree that the public has a right to know a lot about what you have to say, and that seems only fair. So after we do the public deposition, we can then schedule a public hearing, but then they're going to have the evidence they need, right? So I don't know how it's going to get resolved. A lot of the headlines are going, hey, look, Hunter Biden's going to testify. He's going to testify willingly. Well, he doesn't have anything to hide or he wouldn't do it so willingly. No, this is an attempt to have control over the situation and have half the questions come from the Democrats. Rather than sit down with the attorneys from the committee and answer a bunch of hard-nosed questions about financial transactions that will lead them to greater understanding of how things worked. Look, I think that Comer's got the goods here, and I think Abby Lowell knows that he's got the goods here, and he's trying to do everything he can to muddy the water and to not make it look like the process is somehow unfair to his client. By having Democrats screaming that the process is tainted, that there's been no evidence of wrongdoing. Oh, they'll make all the noises and they'll scream and they'll holler and they'll moan and they'll groan and they'll try to make sure that everybody thinks that the process has been unfair on poor little Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden should not get a special consideration that other witnesses before the committee have not gotten. The rules apply to him, just like they apply to everyone else. So that's the battle that's ongoing right now. Abby Lowell will try to play this thing like a fiddle, but I have great confidence that ultimately they will prevail and that they'll get him behind closed doors before he does a public session. From thedailysignal.com, another element to this story. Heritage identifies documents that could speed up in the investigation into Biden's alias email accounts. Getting to the truth of Joe Biden's use of multiple alias email accounts while he was vice president could take years if Congress waits on the U.S. National Archives and Records Administration to release all of the relevant documents it is requesting. However, the Heritage Foundation, and they have a thing called Oversight Project, has identified what could be a relatively small cache of documents that could help Congress get to the heart of the issue in just a matter of months. The alias email issue raises ongoing concerns about the executive branch's use of alias, pseudonyms, and burner accounts as a means to potentially hide its activities and circumvent oversight and accountability. That's exactly why they have them. The aliases linked to Biden include email addresses from relatively unknown email domains managed by the Defense Information Systems Agency, and offshore email providers would make document retention and oversight purposefully difficult under the Presidential Records Act and other laws. Considering such documents must be generally reviewed by lawyers and other potential redactions before being released, the expectation is they would be released at a rate of about 500 pages a month, which means that the National Archives could take several years to produce and release all 82,000 pages. This prolonged timeline would obviously pose severe challenges to any kind of congressional investigation. However, the National Archives has revealed to the Heritage Oversight Project through a narrowly targeted Freedom of Information Act request that it possesses 731 documents relevant to the creation of these alias email accounts and potentially who authorized their use. The Oversight Project targeted FOIA request, and its discovery of this small cache of documents could provide congressional investigators with new leads and witnesses in a more expedient manner, getting to the real essence or the heart of the matter, rather than having to plow through and wait for redactions on 82,000. Be much easier to do it for, 750. Big difference. 750 you get pretty quick. 82,000, it might take 10 years. So, good on you. That's great news right there. Heritage Foundation coming to the assistance of the Oversight Committee and identifying a small subset of those emails that could be quite revealing. In the meantime, we'll bring you up to date on how this battle between Abby Lowell and James Comer is going in the days ahead. 51 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. When it comes to large home repairs, a lot of times homeowners pretend they don't want to see the things that they're seeing. They don't want to ask too many questions because, you might be afraid of what you're going to learn. Well, that's true. But when you're talking about waterproofing and foundation repair issues, it could be something big that needs to be fixed. That's true. It could be. It could also be a small problem that if you fix it now will not become a bigger problem later. Or you might get lucky and find out, that's really not much to worry about. Bottom line is you don't know, and you certainly don't want to be sold something that you don't need. What you need is peace of mind, and you'll get it from the good, honest people at United Structural Systems. It's a company with over 25,000 satisfied residential customers. Now, here's how it works. They'll come out to your house, and they'll take a look at your situation. They'll discuss it with you. They'll try to learn more. They'll do a little research. And then they will come back to you with a proposal that would actually solve your problem. They're not going to try to upsell you with a bunch of stuff you don't need. They're just going to try to solve your problem. And if you go forward, you decide this is the way you want to go, then you don't pay a penny until the job is done and you are completely satisfied. I'm telling you, this is the kind of company I want to do business with, and I think you'll enjoy doing business with them as well. USS serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama. Online at ussTN.com or call this number, 615-488-7855.
If you have a 401k at work, chances are you've seen something called a target date fund. Now, the idea behind a target date fund is if you're going to retire in a specific year, let's say 2030, all you do is put all your money in that fund and you don't even have to think about it. Set it and forget it is the idea. Now, one of the things that I warn people about regarding these types of funds is many times they're not nearly as diversified as you think. When we look at investing, when we look at diversification, we want to own really small companies, really large companies, really growth-oriented, really value-oriented companies, and diversify between these different market areas. Target date funds tend to focus more attention down here for a really basic reason. It sells better. Because you're investing in very big, well-known U.S. companies, what happens is investors tend to like to look like the market, as we say. And the problem, though, is when we do that is we can go very long periods of time. 1966 through 1982 is one example. More recently, 2000 through 2012, where large U.S. stocks had no return, where other market segments actually did quite well. So one of the things that happens is when we invest in a target date fund, we may be overly concentrated and have more risk than we really realize. So if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning and how we educate investors, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.
Well, you got to be thinking about the Christmas gifts you're going to get for that special someone in your life. At Genesis Diamonds, they're rolling back prices and finance rates so you can get headliner gifts this Christmas. Maybe it's that pair of diamond earrings, or the all-new designer fashion bracelet, or that dazzling 2-carat diamond ring. It's all more affordable because at Genesis they've got special pricing across the board and zero interest financing for 5 years. So you can get that $3,000 diamond pendant and pay just $50 a month, or that $6,000 eternity band for just $100 a month. Everything included in this amazing holiday offer. All GIA certified natural diamonds, all lab-grown diamonds, even our luxury pre-owned Rolex watches. Imagine that $15,000 Rolex for just $250 a month. You can even finance the sales tax. So don't talk of rising prices and high internet rates. Don't let that dampen your holiday spirit. At Genesis, they are lowering prices and taking interest rates down to zero. Get that amazing gift they deserve and make your money go further than ever. Merry Christmas from Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs, on approved credit only.
$5 I'm Mac Morey with your top stories right now. 37 degrees and set to get a little bit chilly here tonight. But some warmer temperatures later on this week. We'll tell you about them. Full weather forecast and a traffic report headed your way in 5 minutes. Right now in the volunteer state, Governor Lee officially unveiled his school voucher program today, calling it an educational freedom announcement.
Access to a high-quality education has the power to change the trajectory of a child's life forever. And there is no question that today is the time that we need to allow parents who know best what's best for their child as it relates to education, that we need to give those parents choices.
And if passed for this upcoming school year, the act will award a total of 20,000 scholarships on a first-come, first-served basis for Tennessee residents to attend private school or homeschools of their choosing. And the act aims to award 10,000 scholarships to Tennessee students at or below 300% of the federal poverty level who have a disability or are eligible for the existing ESA pilot program. The other 10,000 scholarships will be made available to a universal pool of students entitled to attend a public school. And Metro School Board leaders are speaking out against this proposal, saying that it will cost public schools millions of dollars, resulting in losses of different services, including the number of librarians at a school. And the clock ticking on George Santos' time as a congressman. A California Democrat has offered a privileged resolution to expel Santos, which means the measure to oust the New York Republican will likely come up for a vote in days. Stephen Portnoy with the latest.
This is the third time we're going through this.
And George Santos says he doesn't care if the House votes to expel him.
If they think this is how it should be done, and if they're confident that this is a constitutional way of doing it, God bless their hearts.
In addition to 23 counts brought by federal prosecutors, the New York Republican is accused by the House Ethics Committee of using his campaign cash to pay for personal expenses. Backers of the expulsion effort say they believe it will receive the required two-thirds vote. Santos says he won't even bother trying to convince colleagues to let him stay.
It's not a good use of my time.
And right now in Tennessee, the 3 suspects accused of stabbing a man outside of Kelton Hardware in Murfreesboro earlier this weekend have now been arrested following a brief chase. License plate readers helped locate these 3 in Clarksville this afternoon. One of the 3 had to be chased down on foot, and the victim remains in critical condition. One of those suspects, an unidentified man, being held to the Montgomery County Jail on attempted first-degree murder charges. The 2 juvenile suspects will be held at the Rutherford Juvenile Detention Center, where juvenile petitions for first-degree murder will be served. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, in for hour number 3 of The Drive. So glad that you're with us on this busy November 28th, this Tuesday. And we'll get you home safely. And along the way, just give you some news and information so you're up to speed on the events of the day. That's the goal right here on the Drive each day, as we drive you home and drive the liberals just a little bit crazy if we get the chance. And we often seek out that chance. All right, I want to talk about 2020 politics and some things that happened today that I think are rather significant. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, let me just pull back and do the 30,000-foot view. Let me just say, as far as the Republican nomination goes, I believe, and everything that I will say after this does not change what I believe, I believe that Donald Trump is the likely nominee because he's so far ahead. Depending on which polls you look at, he's 30, 40, 50 points ahead of his nearest rival. And we get interested in sort of the things happening with the rest of the pack, but it's a heavy lift for anybody who wants to challenge Donald Trump. He is the likely nominee of the Republican Party to run again against whoever the Democrats put up. And again, I don't think it'll be Joe Biden, but that's who it looks like right now. But I think that will change. However, you never know what's going to happen. And you look at who's number 2 in case something happens with number 1. Now, I don't see anything with all of these trials that cause me any concern. I really don't. I honestly don't. But you never know how things are going to play out, and you never know what's going to happen, what tomorrow may bring. And so you got to have somebody out there, and as a backup, and then you look at the rest of the pack. Until recently in Iowa, you would say that the guy likely to do well would be Ron DeSantis. But recently, there's been a challenge in Iowa, and there's been a little movement in favor of Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley. Now, I told you there's this weird thing about the polls. I told you about this last week. If you missed it, let me just recap it. If you ask people the question, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, well, the way most of the polls are going is within the margin of error, general election, if it were held today, Donald Trump would win, but it'd be close. It's within the margin of error. In most polls, in a few polls, it's outside the margin of error. If you ask, a four-way race involving people like, Joseph Kennedy Robert Kennedy Jr. and others, seems to hurt Biden more than it hurts Trump. So, Trump has been surging. Biden has been fading. People are done with Biden, and they are remembering Trump and remembering him favorably because they felt like the economy was pretty good and the world was a lot safer place when Donald Trump was president. So all that is good. But if you ask the question, what if you put Ron DeSantis up against Joe Biden? Hypothetically, what if Ron DeSantis happened to somehow become the nominee? DeSantis would win by a small margin, similar to Trump's margin. If you ask the question, what about Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden in a hypothetical matchup? Should Haley become the nominee against Joe Biden? She would win by 10 or 11 points, according to the surveys. And it's not just one survey. Several surveys have shown that in a hypothetical matchup between Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, it would be a landslide in the direction of Haley. A close election with Trump, a close election with DeSantis. Why is that? I'm going to give you the background on that. Haley appeals to women in a way that Donald Trump does not. She will get a lot of female votes, and there are those in the middle, the mushy middle, who would find her acceptable, and those same people often look at Donald Trump and they say, he's just a little much for me. I'm sorry, there are people who say that. So she would pick up people in the middle, and she would pick up women, and it would be a crushing defeat for Joe Biden. And that's been interesting. People have been wondering, well, it's too bad she can't get the nomination because Trump's so far ahead among Republicans who are going to be voting in the primaries, but that's not going to happen. Well, something happened really good for Nikki Haley today, which sort of may change the way this thing goes forward. You ready? The political wing of the conservative network led by billionaire Charles Koch has endorsed former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley for president, throwing its weight behind a top Republican challenger to former President Trump. This is called American Prosperity's Action, released a memo Tuesday backing Haley, who served as ambassador to the UN during the Trump administration, arguing she is the strongest candidate to defeat Trump in the GOP primaries, as well as the strongest candidate to defeat President Biden in next year's general election. This marks the first time the deep-pocketed group has thrown its support behind a Republican candidate in a presidential primary and opens up vast resources for Haley's challenge to Trump, this according to thehill.com. AFP Action is proud to throw our full support behind Nikki Haley, who offers America the opportunity to turn the page on the current political era, to win the Republican primary and defeat Joe Biden next November. And then it goes on, she has what it takes to lead a policy agenda to take on our nation's biggest challenges and help ensure our country's best days are ahead. With the grassroots and data capability we bring to bear in this race, and they are considerable, no other organization is better equipped to help her do it. The memo stated the group was getting involved in a presidential primary for the first time because it wants a candidate who will turn the page on the past. It added that Trump and Biden will only further perpetuate the country's downward spiral in politics. This comes nearly a year after the conservative network signaled it would not back Trump in the Republican primary, saying it would support a candidate who represents a new chapter. The endorsement demonstrates the group's attempt to distance the Republican Party from Trump, who the group said would lose to Biden. I don't know that I agree with that assessment, but let me tell you something. When the Koch brothers, I think the guys are worth billions. The Koch brothers are worth billions with a B. And when they put their sizable fortune and their organizational skills behind someone, it gets noticed in political circles. So for Donald Trump, is this going to be an effective challenge to Donald Trump? I don't know. I think Nikki Haley will do better in Iowa than you might expect. She'll have all the money she needs to run all the ads she wants and can make the case. Trump has got his own money and he can spend it. If he needs to spend it, he will. The bad news is for Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis would have loved to have had this endorsement. But Nikki Haley has gotten it. So the question is, can this change the face of the Republican primary? And my general sense of it is probably not. But let me just run a couple of scenarios. Let's say that Trump does not quite as well in Iowa as they think he will. I think he'll do well, but he'll probably win it. There's a little doubt that I think he'll win it. But what if Nikki Haley comes in very, very strong? And then you go to New Hampshire. Trump might not do as well in New Hampshire. Nikki Haley might do pretty well. Then you go to South Carolina. Trump will probably win South Carolina, but Nikki Haley's going to be out there. It's her state. She was governor there, so she'll make a good showing there. And then you move on to places like Florida, Nevada, and those other places, and we'll be interested to see, if by that point Nikki Haley is able to get any momentum in the direction of trying to overcome Donald Trump's very, very, very sizable lead. So I think this is, in Republican Party politics, this is a good thing. You would definitely like to have it rather than not have it. And it looks like the Kochs are ready to go full bore for Nikki Haley, provide the money she needs for running ads, give her the support she needs, and there's a whole lot of logistical support and considerable support in each of the major markets where she'll be needing to run. So it'll be interesting to watch how this goes forward. Again, 30,000 view. I still think it's a very heavy lift for anybody whose name is not Donald J. Trump to get the Republican nomination. It just seems like there's so much support for him and all that. And look, I'm not saying I'm pushing this. I'm just saying This is a pretty major development in Republican Party politics that the Kochs who've stayed out of these kind of things in the past have decided to enter the fray with all their money. And Trump is, of course, and as far as I know, Trump and Nikki Haley got along and I don't think there was any bad blood for them when she left the administration. As best I can tell, there wasn't any. And a lot of people have actually said they would like to see a team of Trump and Haley going forward in the general election against Biden, whoever. And that would be an interesting matchup. But today, of course, Donald Trump turned his attention, called her a bird brain, and did all those other things, and said, she's wrong on the policies, and so now all of the Trump anger and all of the Trump ads will be aimed probably specifically at Nikki Haley, with the understanding that Nikki Haley is going to be running a lot of ads. Now, I don't think Nikki Haley will attack Trump. That'd be dumb. I think she will talk about the things that she wants to do in her vision, and not mention Trump at all. But Trump is going to come after Nikki Haley. There's no doubt about that. So there you go. Watch this very carefully. I don't think anything changes radically, but it's interesting that they've now gone to Nikki Haley, a candidate who the polls have shown could win this thing in a landslide if she could only get the nomination. The problem is, can she get the nomination? And right now, I still say that's a very heavy lift. The White House is dancing around Biden's campaign numbers. They're not good. As I've told you, there are some polls that show Donald Trump beating Joe Biden, but it's within the margin of error. There's a few polls that show it being outside the margin of error or right on the edge of the margin of error. But no, they're very well. I say no. There may be a poll here and a poll there, but most polls are showing the Trump with a lead of some kind. It's hard to find polls that have Biden showing any lead over Trump. So, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was asked a lot about this yesterday, and here you go. Here's the big question. In case you missed it yesterday, of the question about, were you going to make any changes? Your polls are not looking too good.
And I suspect if we polled the room, many of us would probably ask some version of the following question. Okay. Given the president's sagging poll numbers and the fact that he is currently placing behind any Republican opponent, has there been any talk in this White House about a change in strategy or staffing going forward in reflection of those numbers to continue to show him underwater?
No.
Succinct and to the point. No. We think things are just going swimmingly well. We think things are going just gangbusters. Peter Ducey.
But why do you think it is that when you say the economy is improving and President Biden says the economy is improving, that a majority of Americans outside of this building are not buying it?
So here's the thing. When we walked into this administration, the economy was on a tailspin. That is the fact.
Yeah, I don't remember it that way. Maybe my memory has slipped. I could be wrong. It's 20 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. Well, listen, if you have got pain in your back and your arms, your legs, your neck, and you think, I'd really like to do something about that, you have just a few more days to take advantage of the Wellness Institute of Nashville's big special for the month of November. They're thankful for you, and they want to celebrate this month of Thanksgiving by giving you an opportunity to start feeling better at a really, really reasonable cost. They're calling it their 2-patient appointments for $23 special. That's right. You'll get 2 exams, 2 x-rays, 2 treatments for you and your spouse, or you and your friend, you and your family member, you and some random person you meet on the street. It doesn't matter, but appointments must be booked together. It's a great deal. I mean, it's basically $11.50 to get an assessment and a treatment. And once you do that, I think you'll see that Dr. Kevin Mitchell and Dr. Ashley Mitchell can help you get on the pathway to feeling better. If someone in your life has tingling, numbness, weakness, back pain, if someone has told you that your situation involves bulging discs, disc herniation, spinal stenosis, they've got therapies that can potentially help. So listen, take advantage of the Wellness Institute's 2-patient exam, x-rays, and treatment for only $23. It starts by setting up an appointment. Here is the number. Write it down. 615-246-5009. Again, 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.
More hostages released today by Hamas. A car crashed into a Franklin business, and investigations are ongoing in Hawaii when it comes to the wildfires there from earlier this year. Those stories coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Oh, you know what time it is?
Do you know what time it is?
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right. It's time for Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports, or the Wide World of Sports with Mac Maury. We're not sure exactly what the title is, but nonetheless, we talk sports for a few minutes. Here's the host of your program. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. It's Mac Maury, ladies and gentlemen.
We know it's a segment you look forward to and that you love. That's what we know. What it's
right.
called?
At some point, we will lock down the name. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Well, Mac, I don't have any idea what we're talking about today, so I hand the platform over to you.
Well, I was thinking about talking about there's this viral story but it's been talked about a lot today about a Chiefs fan and in a headdress and in some black face paint. It was talked about a lot today on WTN, so I figured I'd kind of shift stories here and go a different direction and talk some college football playoff stuff, because It's crazy season right now in college football. We're getting ready for some conference championships. And if you know anything about college football and the way their standings work, the way their playoffs are structured, these games are imperative to if you make the playoffs, if you don't, where you're seated. And this year's no different. I mean, Weber, you know, as a Georgia Bulldogs fan, even you going for your third straight season of being undefeated.
Even you.
could miss out somehow on this playoff journey.
Yeah, crazy.
It's nuts. So starting with the Pac-12, which I guess is now the Pac-2 starting next year because there's only going to be 2 teams in that conference. That's a whole other conversation. Yeah. But Oregon and Washington, they played earlier on this season. Oregon lost in what was a nail-biter, one of the best games of the season. That's number 5 going up against number 3, the Washington Huskies. Whoever wins that game, there's a good chance that they make it. If Washington does win that game, they'll have to make it. They'll be undefeated. They'll be conference champions. If Oregon wins that game, it gets a little bit more interesting as far as that conversation is concerned. Texas and the Big 12 champion. They'll be number 7 in the nation going up against Oklahoma State, number 19. A crazy conference. No one would have predicted Oklahoma State just a few weeks ago. I mean, they've gotten destroyed by some really crappy teams, honestly, this season. But they beat Kansas. They beat K-State. They beat Oklahoma.
They won the ones they needed to win.
They really did. And we'll see if they do that again going up against Texas in Austin. But if Texas wins the Big 12 championship, that's another team where it's like, oh, okay, they have a real good shot. They've beaten Alabama. They've beaten a lot of good teams this year. And the aforementioned Bama going up against Georgia, another rematch this year in the SEC championship game. The more interesting and fun conversation to have here is, as I said, if Georgia loses, because then it's like, well, does Bama make it? Because
who steps up? Yeah.
Exactly. Because if Alabama gets in, then you have to say Texas gets in, because you can't have Alabama make it and have Texas not make it. Alabama beat Texas. And Michigan and the Big Ten, I'm just counting Michigan, and they play Iowa in the Big Ten championship. They're going to win that game. I just think they're going to win that game. They're going to be in. They're going to be undefeated.
You never know. I mean, crazy things can happen and have happened.
Yeah, that's true. And Iowa only passes the ball like 4 times a game, so Michigan's going to have no idea what's happening. They're going to be, what? We don't play like this. There's probably, Oregon, Washington, Georgia, Bama, Texas, Michigan, and then Florida State, who's undefeated.
Yep.
And they're going to play Louisville in the ACC championship. So right there, you've got 7 teams who have a really good case, depending on if these conference championships work out, obviously, to make the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. But, if Alabama were to win, then Texas wins, and Washington wins, all of a sudden you've got those 3 right there. If Michigan wins, those are 4 that really have a fair shot at making it. And I didn't name Georgia.
Wow, that's crazy.
You know what I mean? That's
nuts.
4.
Yeah,
essentially number 1 team all season long.
All year.
You lose one game, and
boom,
you could be out. Yeah.
Wow. It doesn't seem right to me in some reason.
I think, it's when you lose has a lot to do with it.
Exactly.
You lose that last game, and that is going to hurt you a lot more than if you would have lost a game earlier in the season.
If they did that in the NFL, the Titans might still have a chance.
Might still be the case. Exactly.
They can just win the right game. It would be, they would really be better. Hey, listen, you did not talk about the Kansas City thing, but I don't really have it on my list of things to discuss. Very briefly, can you just give us a synopsis of that controversy that's developing?
Yeah, there was a broadcast of the Chiefs game playing the Raiders in Las Vegas, showed a quick clip of a 10 to 14-year-old fan wearing a headdress and what looked like just, blackface. I mean,
because the picture was in profile.
Yes, exactly.
From the position that the camera was in, they took one side of his face, and it left the impression that the person was in blackface, but in fact, half the face was black and half the face was red.
Yes.
And when you looked at it from the front, it wasn't as offensive as it was to apparently some people. Yeah.
No. And so Deadspin wrote an article about that, just basically calling on the NFL to end the racism that the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously. So this whole thing. So big clickbait article.
All right, sounds good. And now time to put on your news hat, because the news is next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.531, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 36 degrees, a clear night in Nashville. Set to get a little bit chillier. Got some warmer temps later on this weekend, but they may be joined by some precipitation. We'll let you know what kind on the way. Full forecast, latest traffic report, 5 minutes. The extended Israel-Hamas truce, now in its 5th day, has led to the release of 12 additional hostages, 10 Israelis and 2 foreign nationals today. More from Ike Ajaji in Washington.
Israel's health ministry says the 11 hostages who were freed from Gaza yesterday are all now in stable condition. Those former hostages seen walking their final steps with Hamas militants into Red Cross vans. The 9 children and 2 women spending time with their families before further medical evaluations.
And so far, no more American hostages have been released. Right now in Tennessee, News 2 says that a car crashed into Franklin Dental Care yesterday afternoon. This is on Columbia Avenue around 3:30. Officers arrived to an uninjured driver who was just sitting in a chair in the lobby. Building officials determined that the structural integrity of that building was A-OK. And Hawaii's Attorney General issuing subpoenas to Maui County government offices as a part of an investigation into the response to August's wildfire that killed 100 people in Lahaina. A 100th victim died recently from fire injuries. Alex Stone.
Among the Maui County agencies receiving subpoenas, Maui Emergency Management. Its director quit after questions were raised about his experience for the job. He also raised eyebrows when he indicated tsunami sirens would have caused residents to run toward the flames. Those flames were coming from higher ground. He said,
"The public is trained to seek higher ground in the event that the siren is sounded."
Investigators are looking into whether those sirens should have been sounded.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
mean, I was just outside. It's cold, 36 degrees here. And, the cold weather is here. And the last thing you need to have is to have the heater go out on you. If your unit's on the blink, why don't you call the people I trust, Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, your official Rude Pro partner. Listen, I'm telling you, the way you avoid having the thing go out is to do regular preventative maintenance on your system. And that's the whole idea behind being a member of the Beehive Club. Starts for as little as $99, and you get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at your heating system, one aimed at your cooling system, one aimed at your plumbing systems. No overtime charges, 24/7, and 10% off all repairs. It's a good value, and by catching things early, maybe you won't have that moment where the heater goes out in the middle of the cold weather. Listen, Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, your official Rude Pro partner for satisfaction guaranteed. Call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com. "38 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and yes, I was just yawning. We got up early this morning here at Stately Wilson Manor in bucolic Watertown because this was Puppy Day, and we are celebrating the arrival of our new puppy. Grogu is now joined by Solo. Solo is a beautiful, what they call a merle. It's a sort of a bluish gray color. Solo is a girl like Grogu, and she's doing well. Mama and Solo are doing well, and so we are in the middle of now doing 2-hour feedings, which means that somebody has to get up every 2 hours. I know, through the night, and somebody's got to do the 2 o'clock feeding, somebody's got to do the 4 o'clock feeding, and some of that's going to be on me, so this is my life for a while.
Fun.
But she's an adorable little dog, and we're very happy to have her join our family for however long she may be with us, but right now she's with us, and we love her. I want to talk a little bit about the Governor Bill Lee's statewide school voucher program proposal. It's going to be discussed by the state legislature, and what I'm about to talk about now is probably going to be, I'm sure it'll be fine-tuned. I'm sure there'll be some adjustments with the state legislature. But before I get into all the details about that, let me just sort of pull back for a moment and say what I think about our governor. I like our governor. I like him a lot. And that doesn't mean I'm going to always be in agreement with him, but I genuinely think he's a very good man. I think, and I've said this before publicly, I've said it to his face. I think he's a good man. I think he's a compassionate man. And I think that his heart is always in doing what he thinks is right. And it is often informed by his faith, which I think is a good thing overall. I would say that from time to time, I have disagreed with some of the policy proposals. And from time to time, no reflection on the governor particularly, but I have seen things happening within the state, the administrative things that are going on, with which I have quibbled and which I have disagreed. But I'll give you an example. I didn't really care for the red flag law. Now, I mean, look, he said it wasn't a red flag law, but my interpretation of it is it's pretty much a red flag law, and I didn't think that was the right way to go. And neither did the state legislature. I think his heart was in the right place by suggesting it. Again, I think he's a very compassionate man. I think in the wake of what happened at the Covenant School shooting, he thought this was the right way to go. And I think there was a reasonable argument to say maybe it wasn't the right way to go, given that we don't really have the information we need to understand that whole situation, what with the manifesto and everything still being locked up in court. So, I didn't agree with him there, and I did say so. I did say I just don't think this is the way to go, and I was very much against the red flag law, as apparently many in the state legislature were. But that doesn't mean I don't like him, and that doesn't mean that when I think he's right, that I am going to get on his bandwagon. And I think he's right about this school voucher idea. Listen, there's going to be a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth. There's going to be a lot of people, they're going to wail and they're going to moan and they're going to groan and they're going to carry on. Oh, we're changing things. Oh, my gosh, this is going to be a disaster. You know what? The school system in Tennessee, let's be honest about it, folks. In some quarters, it is already a disaster. We are not educating our kids the way that a world-class state needs to educate its kids. We need to get serious about education. And I don't think it's right that any kid should be stuck in a school system that can't get the job done for whatever reason it might be. And we have many of them in the state of Tennessee. Now, if your kid's in a school right now and you're happy with the way things are going, that's great. That's wonderful. Man, just keep right on rocking along. There's not a thing that you need to do if you're happy. But what if you're a kid if you were the parent of a kid who's going to school and that school is not getting it done, and you feel stuck, and you feel like I don't have any options. I want better for my child than I'm getting from this public school, but I don't have any options. Well, under this plan, a great number of people would have options, and eventually all students in the state of Tennessee would have the option. We need to give kids stuck in bad schools the opportunity to get a decent education when the public schools are failing. Again, everybody in the world's going to come out and try to shoot at this thing. But I think it's time for a radical departure from the status quo, because the status quo is not working for a lot of kids in this state. Witness the recent test scores. So how's it going to work? Okay. Here's from the Tennessean, and I think it's a pretty good rundown of the things that is being proposed. This week, Tennessee Governor Bill Lee proposes a new statewide school choice program to offer taxpayer-funded grants to 20,000 students to attend private or home schools of their choice, and then eventually to open universal eligibility beginning in 2025. In other words, for the first year, it'll be limited to 20,000 students. But after that, then any student in the state would have the ability to take advantage of this. The idea really is the money follows the student. It isn't automatically given to the school district. It follows the student. If the student goes to a school, then they know that that funding would continue. But if the student wants to go to a private school, a parochial school, a charter school, or even if you want to do advanced homeschooling, this money would be available. Let's go forward and give you a little more details. Lee's proposed Education Freedom Scholarship Act would offer 20,000 Tennessee students about $7,000 and change to attend a private school of their choice beginning in 24-25 school year. So that would be next fall. Next fall, when school begins in the fall. Grants would be allowed to be used on any private school and most home schools. Okay, what will that cost taxpayers? Well, 20,000 students, 7,000 apiece, comes to about $141.5 million. And that's if all slots are filled. There are about 1 million kids in the schools in the state of Tennessee. And so the first year, you only have the funding to provide this ability for about 20,000. Now, here, there are going to be some means testing in all of this. Excuse me. During the first year of the program, the governor's office says 10,000 of the 20,000 grants, so half of them, will be reserved for students whose families' incomes are below 300% of the federal poverty level. It will also be available to students with disabilities and those who are eligible for the existing Education Saving Accounts pilot program in existence today. The remaining 10,000 slots will be made available to any student currently entitled to attend a public school. So not everybody maybe who wants to take advantage of this will be able to get it in year one. But beginning in the 25 school year, going into 26, so fall of 25, eligibility for the scholarships would be open to all Tennessee students regardless of income or previous school enrollment. You could use this for a private school, tuition fees, uniforms, textbooks, tutoring services, transportation expenses, computers, technology, summer and after-school program fees, and fees associated with college entrance exams, like the SAT or the ACTP, advanced placement, and similar for credit exams and state-recognized industry certification exams. And so those are the things that would be available. So again, year one, starting next fall of 24, as kids go back to school, 20,000 slots, 10,000 for really underprivileged kids and kids who have special needs, and then 10,000 for anybody else who wants to make the cut until the money's gone. For, I would guess, first come, first serve on that second 10,000. And then in 25, that option would be available to any student at all that wants to take advantage of this proposal. There will be a legislative process when lawmakers return to the state capitol in January. The legislation will be filed. It will need to pass at least 2 Senate committees and 5 House committees before going to both chamber floors for a final vote. And although it's true that Republicans control the process in the state of Tennessee, both in the Senate and the House, and they should be able to vote for anything that there's agreement on, I think it's going to be very controversial. And I'll tell you why I think it's going to be controversial. It shakes and rattles up the system and the status quo. And people generally don't like the status quo messed with. You got a public school district, and now they're going to be worried. Every superintendent, every school board, every teacher's organization, they're going to be really worried. Well, what will this do to public schools? Well, you know what? It does something that Americans are generally embrace, which is it introduces into the equation the idea of competition. When you don't have any competition, things get lazy, they get bureaucratic, they get bogged down. But now if all of a sudden we're going to lose our funding if we don't make this a better school, then you get busy. You get out there and you hustle. And you relook at everything, and you don't do things by the status quo. It needs a shakeup in Tennessee because many Tennessee schools are failing. Not all, but a lot of them. And we really need to do something to make it better in the state of Tennessee. So school boards are going to whine. Superintendents are going to whine. They're going to lobby their particular lawmaker. They're going to be, going to make a bunch of noise about, how we are really, we're upsetting the apple cart. And they'll talk about underfunding of public schools. Oh, well, if they're not getting it done, let's try something different. The only thing that we cannot do in the state of Tennessee is we cannot go forward with the status quo. Because the status quo is not educating our kids. And I want everybody in this process, the way I'm going to judge anybody who criticizes this plan is I'm going to judge about, are you trying to save your cushy job? Are you trying to maintain the status quo? Or are you actually thinking about what's best for the students of this state? Are you thinking about the kids? Because really, honestly, we're talking about vouchers, we're talking about education, but really when you get to the bottom line here, we're talking about our kids here and making sure they have a great opportunity to get educated. We should not force our kids to be in schools that are failing. We must give parents the option to look at something else, to try something else. And maybe some of the things we try will not be perfect, and maybe they will fail. But eventually, with the opportunity to go and try a bunch of things out there that we're not trying right now, I think we'll find some solutions. And at the very least, public schools are going to have to get on their tippy toes if they're going to keep kids around. And that will require them to rethink the way they're educating kids right now because they're not doing a good job in some places. I support the governor's measure. What I've read about it thus far, there may be some adjustments, but there's going to be a lot of criticism. And I just want you to think about not, the things that people are going to throw rocks at this thing. I think you should look at it from one perspective and only. What's right for our kids? And what I think we should give our kids is opportunity. And I believe this plan will do that. 51 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. King and Associate Insurance in Brentwood has been in business for 25 years at that location, and I love the fact that this is an independent agency, and that could be a real advantage to you. I mean, in most insurance companies, the big ones, the ones on the internet, you know, where you just do your business on the internet. By the way, have you ever tried to call one of those places? I'm telling you, it's maddening. You can be on the phone for hours waiting for somebody to come and answer a simple question. That won't happen at King and Associates. When you call this number, 615-329-8121, you don't reach a call center. You reach an actual person who will point you in the right direction and get somebody on the phone who can help you. The other thing I love about independent agencies is they're not stuck with one product. They can shop around. They have a lot of different places they can go, and they can find that policy that really meets your needs. Unlike the big companies, which are selling you one product, take it or leave it, trying to push a square peg into a round hole. It doesn't always work, does it? They're going to find a policy that will give you the things you need, more bang for the buck, better insurance. Isn't that what you want? They also know the value of multi-policy discounts, and they'll talk to you about how you can save big money, 20, 25, 30, 35% by bundling, and they know how to do it effectively. So get your royal review with King and Associates Insurance. Log on to tkinginsurance.com. King Insurance and Associates. Royal treatment. Great rates.
If you have a 401k at work, chances are you've seen something called a target date fund. Now, the idea behind a target date fund is if you're going to retire in a specific year, let's say 2030, all you do is put all your money in that fund. You don't even have to think about it. Set it and forget it is the idea. Now, one of the things that I warn people about regarding these types of funds is many times they're not nearly as diversified as you think. When we look at investing, when we look at diversification, we want to own really small companies, really large companies, really growth-oriented, really value-oriented companies, and diversify between these different market areas. Target date funds tend to focus more attention down here for a really basic reason. It sells better. Because you're investing in very big, well-known U.S. companies, what happens is investors tend to like to look like the market, as we say. And the problem, though, is when we do that is we can go very long periods of time. 1966 through 1982 is one example. More recently, 2000 through 2012, where large U.S. stocks had no return, where other market segments actually did quite well. So one of the things that happens is when we invest in a target date fund, we may be overly concentrated and have more risk than we really realize. So if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning and how we educate investors, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.
6:01, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 33 degrees on Music Row. We got a forecast and the latest traffic report headed your way in 5 minutes. Right now in Tennessee, Governor Lee officially unveiled his school voucher program today.
Access to a high-quality education has the power to change the trajectory of a child's life forever. And there is no question that today is the time that we need to allow parents who know best what's best for their child as it relates to education, that we need to give those parents choices.
And if passed for next school year, the act will award a total of 20,000 scholarships on a first-come, first-served basis for Tennessee residents to attend private school or home schools of their choosing. And the act aims to award 10,000 scholarships to Tennessee students at or below 300% of the federal poverty level who have a disability or are eligible for the existing ESA pilot program. The other 10,000 will be made available to a universal pool of students entitled to attend a public school. And Metro School Board leaders are speaking out against this proposal, saying that it'll cost public schools millions of dollars, resulting in losses of different services, including librarians. The Israel-Hamas conflict, the extended truce now in its fifth day, has led to the release of 12 additional hostages, 10 Israelis, 2 foreign nationals. Ike Jaji.
The truce has also included the release of more than 150 Palestinian women and teenage prisoners from Israel. And now more humanitarian aid is getting into Gaza. 61 relief trucks delivered to a local hospital in Gaza filled with food, water, and emergency medical supplies.
And no American hostages were released today. Right now in Tennessee, skeletal remains were found in Shelbyville over the holiday weekend. It was on Saturday that remains were found near Blue Ribbon Parkway and Shoma Drive. Officers said the remains were fully intact, fully clothed. The TBI now assisting in that investigation. And some entertainment news, a very specific music chart record broken by a 12-minute flute jam. Jason Nathanson.
The rock band Tool doesn't have a lot of songs on the pop charts, but one record the band has held for 4 years is the longest song to make it on Billboard's Hot 100 singles chart, the 10-minute and 21-second song Fear Inoculum, which peaked at number 93 in 2019. That record has now been broken. Andre 3000's song, I Swear I Really Wanted to Make a Rap Album, but This Is Literally the Way the Wind Blew Me This Time, has entered the Hot 100 at number 90, all 12 minutes and 20 seconds of it. It's off the former Outkast rapper's instrumental album, New Blue Sun, which is mostly experimental flute music.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
8 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. Good afternoon. Good evening. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive. So glad that you're with us on this, what is it, the 20, I am my dadgum calendar, 28th day of November. I'm having technical difficulties here with my calendar. We're so glad you're with us, and we got a lot to talk about here. I have been neglectful today to talk about this, and I wanted to make sure that I did. Before it gets too late, let me just mention, we're having a Super Talk Live event Thursday, December 7th from 4 to 8 p.m. at Scoreboard at Cedar Creek Marina. We'll be talking about the year that we're about to leave behind, and we'll be talking about the year ahead, and a lot of things to chew over. Dan will be there, Chris will be there, Matt and I will be there. We'll broadcast live, and guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You don't need a ticket. You don't need to pay anything. There'll be no cover charge. It's free. Free as the air you breathe. Details at 997WTN.com. We want you to come out. I think it's going to be a brisk evening.
Yeah, it could be downright chilly.
Yeah, but they have those overhead heaters and everything, and it's going to be, going to be fun. We're all hardy people here in Middle Tennessee. So anyway, it's going to be fun. And the way this is going to work is that I'm going to start my show that day from bucolic Watertown, and then at some point, the boys will all be over at the location, and then I'm going to drive over and join them. For the last, we're going to go by the 8 o'clock. We're not going to stop at 7. No, the fun will just be beginning at 7. We're going to go all the way to 8 o'clock, which is almost my bedtime. So,
yeah, that's
staying up late on a school night. We are. That's right. Hey, listen, I got a lot of stuff I want to talk about. I mean, we've been doing a lot of serious news, and I've been shouting, getting all emotional about stuff here today. But I want to talk about some fun stuff. And this is Music City, is it not? Can we talk a little bit about some of the things that's going on in Music City? And I have already touted you on Dolly Parton's Rockstar album, which came out the other day. Now, it's her 53rd album. You remember that? I know, 53 albums. And I don't still have the Grogu theme song. But, Dolly Parton's first album, she was like 13 years old.
Yeah.
Her first record when she put it out, she was 13 years old. And it's a song called Puppy Love. Puppy Love, Puppy Love. It's a very cute little tune.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, no stopping her after that. Well, this Rockstar album all started when she got nominated into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And she said, no, thank you. I'm not a rock star. They said, we don't care. We just love you. And we want you to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And they said, we reject your rejection. That's essentially what they said. We don't care whether you want to be in. You're going in. And she said, okay, if I'm going in, then I'm going to record a rock and roll album so that I can be a legitimate member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Well, she did it. It's 30 cuts. I downloaded it before I went on a little weekend trip down to Birmingham. And I got all the way. I got 2/3 to Birmingham before I went through all the cuts. That's how long it takes to play out this musical endeavor. And she's got Elton John, she's got Miley Cyrus, she's got Chris Stapleton, she's got Paul McCartney. And she's got, you just can't believe the people that she has here. She has Leonard Skinner, the entire band. And she does Prince, and she does Stairway to Heaven. She has Ann Wilson from Heart. And it just, Kid Rock makes an appearance. And, it just goes on and on. It's just like a laundry list of great rock and roll musicians who said, yeah, Dolly, we're in. Apparently she got both Paul McCartney and Ringo to play on her version of, what is it? I forget. Let It Be with Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr. And you know what she did? She just wrote him a sort of a mash note saying, I love you guys. I love you so much. Would you come be on my album? Paul McCartney actually plays piano. Ringo plays the drums. And a member of, I'm trying to remember the guy's name, Mick Fleetwood plays percussion on it as well.
Well, who wouldn't want to play with Dolly?
Come on. That's right. All right. So for those of you on stream, you won't hear this. But for people on the terrestrial radio, you will hear this. because we're not allowed to play music on the stream. I just want to explain that while there will be a gap of silence. But here's a little, and this is my favorite cut on the album. It's called "I Can't Get No Satisfaction." It's the old, the old Rolling Stones tune, and she is accompanied by Pink and Brandi Carlile. Oh, I love that. A little phase shifting going on there. A la the Doobie Brothers and that kind of stuff. I mean, I think, listen, the album is beautifully produced. I'll tell you another surprise. It surprised the heck out of me that it was one of my favorite cuts. She does a version of Wrecking Ball with Miley Cyrus, who I think I heard somewhere that Miley Cyrus, that Dolly is her godmother.
That's true.
Is that true? Yeah. So and so they do a version of Wrecking Ball, which is awesome. I mean, it's really, really, really good. So I mean, I love the album. Well, listen to this. A week that saw 77-year-old Country Music Hall of Fame and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee Dolly Parton celebrate the release of her 30-track album Rockstar. They saw her sing Rocky Top at the University of Tennessee's stadium, plus We Are the Champions on the 50-yard line during the Dallas Cowboys Thanksgiving Day game. Dressed as a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, I might add. That was something to see. 77 years old, not there dancing around. And she is now, are you ready for this? She is debuting at #1 on 6 different Billboard charts. I don't know that that's ever happened. I don't know. Hang on.
Impressive.
I'm turning the page. Her over 143,000 inaugural week global sales has her currently perched at #1 on Billboard top album sales, top current album sales, independent album charts. She's also on top of Billboard's top rock albums, top rock and alternative albums, top country albums chart. She says, "This is a big thrill. I owe a thank you to the fans who've always been there for me. Their support made this achievement possible. I'd also like to thank my producer, Kent Wells. I'm telling you, this guy did a great job in producing the album. I listen to an album not only for the music, but how it's produced. I mean, I care deeply about the way things are done, and whether you can tell in an instant whether you've got a producer that's worth their salt when you listen to a good album that's produced well. You know it. Kent Wells did a great job. All the wonderful artists, musicians, and engineers who brought their talent to this project. Impressively, Rockstar's success nearly triples 1 week sales of Parton's 1993 platinum seller, Slow Dancing with the Moon, which becoming her 48th top 10 entry on Billboard charts and 8th #1 on that chart. This total extends her record for the most top 10 albums by a female artist to 46-year run. Wow. Listen, she said, I wanted to make a record of major rock classics that reflected those songs true to the rhythm in my voice. I did my dead level best to make an album and that people whose songs I covered could be proud of. And I think what resulted is some of my best work. I agree. I mean, I love Dolly. I mean, I listen, The Grass is Blue, one of her bluegrass albums. I play that all the time, and I am a huge fan of Dolly Parton. And I love her country stuff. But I've got to tell you, I didn't think her voice would work with rock and roll. I really didn't. But it does. And she gets it. It's the process of good. They gave her a lot of room in the middle so her voice can really sort of come out of those mixes. And I enjoyed that immensely. I think I enjoyed that, listening to that album as much as anything I've listened to in a long time. Yeah. Wow. So there you go. So there you go. Congratulations, Dolly. Absolutely. We love you. And I'm sorry all you folks on the stream didn't get to hear that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Here's some more music news very quickly. We got about 2 minutes left here before we have to go to break. Why is Daryl Hall suing John Oates in Nashville? We told you that there was a restraining order and a whole. The restraining order has sort of a. We think, well, is he going to show up at his house with a baseball bat or something? Why is there need for a restraining order? It's not that kind of restraining order. Here we go. Newly obtained court documents are painting a clearer picture into why the 1980s pop rock duo Hall and Oates are currently in the middle of a legal battle. According to a motion filed in Davidson County Chancery Court, Daryl Hall is suing his bandmate John Oates over Oates' desire to sell his stake in a joint partnership called Whole Oats Enterprises, LLP. Hall says in court documents that he learned Oates was attempting to sell his stake of WOE through a third-party arbitrator, which he claims is a breach of contract. So the temporary restraining order is to stop the business transaction from going forward until it can be adjudicated in a court of law. So the restraining order orders a halt on the sale of Hall & Oates music by John Oates. Daryl Hall says, I don't want you to sell it. I want to be involved in this, and it's supposed to be arbitration. And that's basically, it's a business disagreement about who's going to control the rights to their music. And finally, Nashville's new mayor apparently fancies himself to be something of a hip-hop DJ. We got to come up with a name for him. Flashy Freddie O'Connell. I don't know. Flashy Fast Freddie. I don't know. He's going to play and mix a 10-minute DJ set at the Bicentennial Capitol Mall State Park celebration. That's right. My name is Fast Freddy, and I'm here to say I'm going to play the music and dance the night away. I mean, come on, we got to have something like that. That was a very bad.
Oh
no! Apparently, they're doing a whole series of DJs and Flashy Freddie O'Connell, who holds a music degree.
Huh.
I did not know that. Is going to apparently do some of the warm up before the band start playing. This is, I guess this is the big bash. This is the New Year's bash.
Okay.
That's a big crowd.
Yes, it is.
Don't choke now, Freddie, because
no pressure.
Have you ever played in front of a crowd that size? It's like 250,000 people can be there. It's amazing. The concert is free, open to the public. This year's headliners include, and this is why I raised this, Lady Wilson, yeah, Thomas Rhett, you got it, and the rock band Leonard Skinner. Now, do you think, since Leonard Skinner appeared on Rockstar with Dolly Parton, and they did Freebird together, a 10-minute and 44-second version of Freebird, do you think that Dolly might pop up on stage and do Freebird with Leonard Skinner?
I can see it now. A helicopter flies over the stage, and she comes down on a rope onto the stage.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
That would be great fun. All right. Well, I don't know. One way or the other. I for love nor money, I'm not going to miss Fast Freddy's 10-minute set as a hip-hop DJ.
Yeah, Freddie.
You got the one ear on his headphones pulled back, sliding those records back and forth. It's 22 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. 27 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. Brian Wilson in the chair, bringing you news and information. Some of it, I think, is pretty interesting. Like this story. And, sometimes you just feel like, is somebody making this stuff up, or did this really happen? But sometimes, you can't make up stuff that happens. You sometimes find the most amazing stories on police blotters. Back in the day when people actually went by to read the blotter. When I first got into radio news, I worked in my hometown, and things like what happened overnight in the police department and crashes in major intersections in the city and ambulance runs and fires, that was real news in that community. And we used to go by every morning before we went in. I made a stop at the police department and I read the overnight blotter. I took notes. And it was all typewritten. Here's what happened overnight. This unit was dispatched, and it was right there on a piece of paper, and you could read it. And you found sometimes some of the most interesting stories. And if you brought donuts to the guys, they'd tell you the real story behind what was on the blotter. Hey, you should have seen this one. Oh, man, this was crazy. It went down about 2 o'clock in the morning, and you'd get these great stories. And then I would go to the fire department, and I'd look at their blotter. Then I'd go to the sheriff's office, which was just around the corner, and I'd look at their blotter. And so, I knew what had happened in Odessa and the surrounding environs. And then, believe it or not, even back in the day, I would go to the emergency room and look at the emergency room blotter. HIPAA would never allow that today.
Times have changed.
I knew who was in for getting a treatment on sexually transmitted diseases and who had come in with a gunshot or a knife wound. And I mean, that's the way you used to, it's called working a beat. So, you find great stories by doing this. Here you go. Here's one from Michigan. A Michigan boy led police on a chase that lasted over an hour Saturday while driving a stolen forklift. The 12-year-old hit at least 10 different vehicles while driving the forklift, identified as a Construction Genie GTH 636 telehandler, which he stole outside a middle school, according to a report from the Ann Arbor Police Department. He discovered the keys to the 35,000-pound machine inside the cab, and he just decided, I'm going to take a joyride. Authorities were first alerted to the boy's actions at 6:45 p.m., and a distress call, and they arrived on the scene. They saw him driving the machine down the street of Ann Arbor, Michigan. They arrested the 12-year-old boy after he led officers on an hour-long chase, sometime reaching speeds of 22 miles an hour. The boy accessed the construction vehicle at a school after finding the key hidden inside the cab. And a pursuit, there were sirens. And I mean, you talk about your slow speed chase. I mean, what the forklift not going to make great time. And the police chase ended at 7:20 after the boy left Ann Arbor city limits, and the sheriff's office took over the chase, and they stopped him driving about 8 p.m. No injuries. The child taken into custody and placed in a juvenile detention center. This was a very dangerous situation that could have easily ended with serious injuries, and there's an ongoing criminal investigation. A forklift. Should have done, a front loader at least. It's 30 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air for about, almost 22 minutes more, and then we'll hand it over to Mark Levin after the news, and he'll carry on throughout the evening. We have been talking on this program quite a bit about the Biden administration's war on the combustion engine, the internal combustion engine, and how they want you to go to an electric car. And you know what? The people are revolting. No, I don't mean you're revolting. I mean you're revolting against the idea of internal combustion cars going away. You don't want electric cars. I mean, some do, and it seems like most everybody who wanted one has bought one. And now the car dealers have a lots full of them, and they can't get rid of them for love nor money. You can, by the way, if you want an electric car, the reverse way of looking at this is go now, because they got them and they got to get rid of them and they can't sell them. And so, you can get your electric car. I will not be among those seeking an electric car. Auto dealers make a lot of political contributions across the state, across the United States, and they are now urging the Biden administration to ease up on its ambitious electric vehicle targets, citing concerns about what the dealers say is a lag in consumer demand. A group of dealers who collectively dub themselves the EV voice of the customer noted in a letter Tuesday morning that production has outpaced demand, leaving them with a surplus of unsold electric vehicles on their lots. The reality, the group of car dealers said, is that electric vehicles demand today is not keeping up with the large influx of electric vehicles arriving in our dealership, prompted by the current regulations. They're stacking up on our lots and we can't get rid of them. While EV sales in the United States have increased and are on pace to reach 9% of all new passenger vehicles sold this year, according to latest projections, sales remain far below expected targets. All the major car companies are reassessing what they're going to do with electric vehicles. And by the way, I'll just parenthetically insert here, we're a state that builds a lot of electric vehicles. And we do already, and we're about to build more with the introduction of Blue Oval City. So this is important to the state of Tennessee, right? Biden administration has sought to ramp up EV sales to 50% by the year 2030. And that's a target that the Environmental Protection Agency's proposed in their vehicle emissions targets. So they're saying, you've got to meet these targets, and they're forcing the major automakers to produce more electric vehicles because that's the only way they can reach the ambitious mandates handed down by the EPA in the Biden administration. So I don't know that it's going to work. At some point, you can't force people to buy what they do not want. I think what this will do, it'll drive up the cost of the internal combustion engine cars. And then, people, I guess they're going to try to force. They don't want us to have freedom of choice. An electric vehicle does not meet my needs. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. My needs are to be able to travel long distances on occasion. And if you're doing that in an electric vehicle, you're in, and as we have demonstrated by telling story after story after story, you're in for a difficult row because you can't get charging stations. You get there and sometimes they don't work and you're stranded. I'm going to read a story here in a minute about how what the truth is about these electric vehicles. But the truth is they're okay if you're just doing a short round trip, town and back, work and back, and you can charge at home and every evening. But if you need to go somewhere, it's going to be a problem. And the last line of the story is, if you go somewhere, carry your portable charger with you. And it's a trickle charger, and it takes forever to charge it up with the portable charger. But, I mean, that may be the only way you can charge your car at all, is to carry your trickle charger in the trunk. So much for, luggage. In the state of Connecticut, the Democrat governor has withdrawn electric vehicle mandates. This is shocking. This is, they say, in a stunning blow to environmentalists. Democrat Connecticut Governor Ted Lamont is withdrawing the plan to mandate future electric vehicles purchases after the proposal received bipartisan pushback from lawmakers on a key legislative panel. He ultimately pulled the proposal just 4 months after unveiling it and characterized it as decisive action to meet our climate pollution reduction targets. But the state legislature wouldn't go for it. And there are too many questions regarding the capacity of our electric grid, the cost and location of grid improvements, the negative impact on urban, rural, and working poor families. More than 90% of our pollution comes from outside the control of Connecticut. We need a national and international approach to improve our air quality. And they sort of rejected the idea of saying that the electric cars were the solution. So there's a lot of pushback to the Biden administration. And, and people are starting to understand this is coming from the Biden administration, another thing that they're trying to impose upon us. From the Wall Street Journal, I was digging around today in the Wall Street Journal, as I often do in the mornings. And there was a story there. It's 12 pages long, and I don't have time to get into all of it. But it says electric cars and driving range, here's what to know. And it goes through and it gives you all the details about where you're going to run into problems. And they say that the EPA ranges on these cars are off somewhere between 15 and 20%, usually in the wrong direction. In other words, they say they'll do 300, but they'll do 200. Some things like that. And they said, by the way, Tesla was one of the worst for overestimating the battery power. Then they go on to answer a lot of questions like, how do they do these tests? And some of them do it, the EPA does it one way, and some of the other testing agencies, the independent agencies, do it another way. So you need to make sure that if you're comparing mileage, that you're looking at the same results in each if you're looking to buy one. And then it goes on to talk about, well, what can you do to increase your driving range? Well, they say go slow. Well, that's going to work in Tennessee, right?
Yeah, try that on 65 or 24 or 40.
Traveling at 80 miles an hour instead of 65 can cut your driving range by 17%. There's a lot of people driving 80 miles an hour in Tennessee. Does air conditioning degrade the range? Somewhat. And cold weather, what's the problem there? Well, the cold weather can apparently, it's two things. Number one, you don't have an internal combustion engine generating heat in an electric EV. So if you're going to heat the interior of your car, it has to be done with electricity from the battery. So the battery is not only driving you down the road, but keeping you warm. That's part of it. Part of it is the batteries are not as efficient as the temperatures plunge. And so you may see dramatic reductions in your range. Unless, of course, you don't mind freezing in your car while you're driving down the road, and then you might be okay, but you'll still lose some of it. Goes on and on and on. If you want to look it up, it's in the Wall Street Journal. The link to the story is on yourfarb.com. Finally, we're the program that believes the truth is out there. This is a 23-page report that I'm about to delve into from the Daily Mail, and it's pretty fantastical, the things that they are saying. You ready? And by the way, they claim they have this all sourced up. They claim they have reliable sources who have confirmed this information not once, not twice, but 3 times. So I'm going to read it, and you decide. A secretive CIA office has been coordinating the retrieval of crashed UFOs around the world for decades, multiple sources tell thedailymail.com. One source said that at least 9 apparent non-human craft have been recovered by the U.S. government, some wrecked from a crash, 2 completely intact. 3 sources briefed on those alleged top-secret operations told dailymail.com that the Office of Global Access, the OGA, a wing of the Central Intelligence Agency Science and Technology Directorate, has played a central role since 2003 in orchestrating the collection of what could be alien spacecraft. The 3 sources who spoke on condition of anonymity to avoid reprisals have all been briefed by individuals involved in those alleged UFO retrieval missions. Though the shocking claim sounds like they come from a science fiction novel, they are part of a growing body of evidence suggesting the U.S. government could indeed be hiding advanced vehicles not made by humans. I'm telling you. Well, I mean, it's the CIA. Could this be, I'm just asking, could this be the Men in Black?
Ooh.
Former top intelligence officer David Grush told Congress as much in an explosive public hearing in July. The same month, this is true, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer sponsored an extraordinary bill to allow disclosure of recovered technologies of unknown origin and biological evidence of non-human intelligence, which has now passed in the Senate. Sources who spoke to the Daily Mail shed light on how the CIA has allegedly coordinated the secret recovery and storage of these alleged crashed or landed UFOs. There's at least 9 vehicles. There were different circumstances for different ones, one source briefed by UFO program insiders told DailyMail.com. It has to do with the physical condition they're in. If it crashes, sometimes there's a lot of damage done. Others, well, 2 of them are completely intact. End of quote. The sources say the CIA has a system in place that can discern UFOs while they're still cloaked, and that if the non-human craft land, crash, or are brought down to Earth, special military units are set to try to salvage the wreckage. Another source with knowledge of OGA's role said they specialize in allowing the U.S. military to secretly access areas around the world where they would usually be denied, for example, behind enemy lines. They're basically a facilitator for people to get in and out of countries. They were very clever at being able to get anywhere in the world they want to go. Multiple sources briefed on the OGA's activity told DailyMail.com that most of its operations involve more conventional retrieval missions, such as, well, stray nuclear weapons. I hope we don't have too many of those. Downed satellites, which happens occasionally, or adversaries' technology. But they claim some missions coordinated by the OGA have involved retrieval of UFOs. The task at hand is simply to get into custody and protect the secrecy of it. The actual physical retrieval is by the military, but not kept under military control because they have to keep too many records, so they start moving it out fairly quickly into private hands. Documents published by the National Archives and Record Administration in December of 2016 showed that the OGA was one of 56 offices in the CIA, with its chief and deputy making up 2 of a total of 286 director-level officials in the spy agency. An unclassified organizational chart published by the CIA in 2015 lists the OGA among 9 offices in the science and technology wing of the agency. Late CIA expert Jeffrey Reckelson wrote in a 2016 book on the agency that the OGA was established in 2003 and cited a CIA description that it integrates analysis and technology and tradecraft to attack the most difficult targets and to provide worldwide collection capability. So there you go. It goes on, but I'm telling you, pretty interesting stuff being reported by the Daily Mail. 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. You know, a lot of people can make a diagnosis out there, and there's a pill for everything, but not all diagnoses are accurate, and not all pills are good for you. And when you get a diagnosis for European auto repair, you need to stop and get a second opinion before you make a major decision. And Eurofix is the home for second opinions. Before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on European vehicle repair from a diagnosis you get someplace, why don't you go to Eurofix? It might save your vehicle's life, but it could actually save you a lot of stress. At Eurofix, you get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit. No high-pressure sales tactics. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And at Eurofix, you never pay dealer prices. Locations in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now their newest facility in Mount Juliet. Call 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com and tell them your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you.
If you have a 401k at work, chances are you've seen something called a target date fund. Now, the idea behind a target date fund is if you're going to retire in a specific year, let's say 2030, all you do is put all your money in that fund and you don't even have to think about it. Set it and forget it is the idea. Now, one of the things that I warn people about regarding these types of funds is many times they're not nearly as diversified as you think. When we look at investing, when we look at diversification, we want to own really small companies, really large companies, really growth-oriented, really value-oriented companies, and diversify between these different market areas. Target date funds tend to focus more attention down here for a really basic reason. It sells better. Because you're investing in very big, well-known U.S. companies, what happens is investors tend to like to look like the market, as we say. And the problem, though, is when we do that, is we can go very long periods of time. 1966 through 1982 is one example. More recently, 2000 through 2012, where large U.S. stocks had no return, where other market segments actually did quite well. So one of the things that happens is when we invest in a target date fund, we may be overly concentrated and have more risk than we really realize. So if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning and how we educate investors, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.